The chamber is open and full of whispers.
What if the most dangerous decision Albus Dumbledore ever made wasn't raising Harry for slaughter, but choosing, on purpose, to raise him in the house that fought for Voldemort? What if the boy who lived didn't grow up unwanted in a cupboard, desperate for scraps of love, but grew up in a manor, in silk robes, surrounded by ancient wards, education, etiquette, and power? What if Harry Potter's first family wasn't the Dursleys, but Narcissa and Lucius Malfoy? It sounds impossible. Canon tells us Dumbledore left Harry with his aunt because Lily's blood could protect him, because a bond of blood charm could make Privet Drive a sanctuary. And canon also tells us the Malfoys were Death Eaters, or close enough that it hardly mattered. So how could this ever happen? The answer is a crack in the foundation of the Wizarding War. A narrow window where protection becomes a trade, where Dumbledore's chessboard instincts outweigh his conscience, and where Narcissa Malfoy, Narcissa Black, remembers a brilliant Muggle-born girl from Hogwarts, from a slug club dinner, from a moment that should have meant nothing, and decides to claim the child that girl died to save. Because this timeline isn't Dark Harry. It's something far more frightening. A Harry raised with resources, education, and political acumen. A Harry who learns magic isn't a miracle, it's a tool. And most importantly, a Harry with a brother. Because the emotional core of this story isn't ideology. It's family. Two boys who shouldn't love each other, but do. Two boys raised in a house that teaches them to trust no one, who decide to trust each other anyway. We're going to follow them from the night the Wizarding World celebrated, to the first time the Sorting Hat touches Harry's head, to the moment he realizes belonging can be a cage as easily as it can be a home. And we're going to watch what happens when Voldemort returns to find his greatest enemy didn't grow up alone. He grew up behind Malfoy Manor's gates. So, let's explore the timeline where the boy who lived became the Malfoys' most valuable secret. The claim. November 1st, 1981. Malfoy Manor in Wiltshire didn't celebrate like the rest of Britain. There were no fireworks over the village, no drunken witches singing in the streets, no strangers hugging. Inside the manor, the air was tense with silence, the kind that follows a storm that might not be over. The drawing room walls were dark purple, the fire low, the curtains pulled tight as if the night itself might be listening. Lucius Malfoy stood by the mantelpiece, one hand resting on the cold stone. His other hand held a folded copy of the Daily Prophet, untouched. He wasn't reading it. He already knew what it said. The Dark Lord fell. The Potters were murdered. A baby survived. A lightning scar. A legend born in a cradle. And somewhere out there, the Wizarding World was crowning a child as a symbol. Lucius didn't like symbols. Symbols were unpredictable. Symbols inspired fools. Symbols attracted attention. And attention was death. Narcissa sat on the sofa, straight-backed, her pale fingers clasped together as if she were praying. But Narcissa Malfoy didn't pray. She calculated. And right now, her calculation was simple. If the world believed Voldemort was gone, the ones who served him would become prey. They would scramble. They would rewrite their stories. They would lie. They would betray each other. They would do anything to survive. Lucius's gaze flicked to the corner of the room, where a small blonde boy slept in a cradle charmed to rock itself gently. Draco Malfoy. Their heir. Their fragile, perfect proof that the Malfoy line would continue even if the world burned. Narcissa's eyes lingered on Draco too, but then she looked away, toward the window, toward the darkness beyond the glass, toward the thought she couldn't stop holding. A baby left without parents. A baby with a scar. A baby the world would fight over. Lucius broke the silence first. They're calling him the boy who lived. Narcissa didn't respond. Lucius's mouth tightened. Do you know what that means, Sissa? It means, Narcissa said softly, that a child will be used as a banner. Lucius exhaled once, controlled. And banners attract arrows. Narcissa's gaze didn't move. Where is he? Lucius turned slightly, studying her. That is Dumbledore's concern. Narcissa's voice sharpened, just a fraction. Where is he? Lucius's eyes narrowed. You care. It wasn't a question. It was accusation. Narcissa turned her head, slow. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were cold enough to cut glass. Do not mistake interest for sentiment. Lucius gave a thin smile. Of course. He walked to the side table, poured himself a drink he didn't taste. The ministry will be chaos, he said. Trials, confiscations, questions. Everyone will pretend they were forced. Everyone will pretend they were under Imperius. And some will be, Narcissa said. Lucius's smile faded. Some will lie. Narcissa stood. Her robe whispered across the floor as she moved to the fire, to the warmth that didn't warm her. Dumbledore will place the boy with muggles, she said. Lucius blinked once. How do you know that? Narcissa looked into the flames. Because she had been a black before she became a Malfoy. Because the black family web stretched everywhere. Because names were doors. And she knew which ones opened. It is what he does, she said. He hides what he loves. He hides what he fears. He calls it protection. Lucius's eyes flicked to Draco's cradle again. And if he places the boy with muggles, Lucius said carefully, then the boy is safe, and the wizarding world forgets him until he's old enough to matter. Narcissa turned. No. Lucius's brow rose. Narcissa's voice remained quiet, but the quiet had weight. The wizarding world does not forget that kind of miracle. Lucius's gaze sharpened. You're thinking politically. Narcissa held his eyes. I'm thinking realistically. Lucius took a sip. Then you know why he can't be with us. Narcissa didn't flinch. That depends, she said, on what you think us means. Lucius's lips pressed together. We were marked. Narcissa's eyes hardened. We were not convicted. Lucius set the glass down. We were loyal. Narcissa's voice cut sharp now. You were loyal. Lucius's face went still. The air in the room tightened. Narcissa breathed once. Then her voice dropped back into calm. There was a girl at Hogwarts, she said. Lucius blinked. Throne. A girl? Narcissa didn't look away this time. Lily Evans. Lucius's expression flickered. Almost imperceptible. Muggle-born. Yes, Narcissa said. Muggle-born. Brilliant. The kind Slughorn collected like rare wine. The kind everyone noticed even if they pretended they didn't. Lucius stared at her. You're telling me you noticed Lily Evans? Narcissa's mouth was unreadable. I was older. I was invited to dinners where she was shown off. A clever girl made into a novelty. I remember her because she looked uncomfortable being admired. Lucius's voice was quiet. And that matters now because... Narcissa's eyes sharpened into something dangerous. Because she died. Lucius's jaw tightened. Narcissa stepped closer. Because she died protecting her child. Lucius's gaze held steady, but something cold moved behind it. And you think that obligates us? Narcissa's voice turned to ice. I think it changes the game. Lucius laughed once, humorless. The game is survival. Narcissa nodded. Yes. She glanced at Draco again. Then back to Lucius. And if the boy who lived grows up under someone else's control, we lose. Lucius's eyes narrowed. We lose what? Narcissa's voice was simple. Options. Lucius watched her. You want him. Narcissa didn't deny it. She said the truth that made it worse. I want him protected. Lucius's lips curved in a thin, sharp line. You want him as a shield. Narcissa's eyes flashed. Lucius's smile didn't move. He is an asset. Narcissa's voice lowered. He is a child. Lucius's eyes were hard. Children become weapons whether we like it or not. Narcissa's hands clenched once. Then she released them. Control. Always control. The question, Narcissa said, is who holds the weapon? Lucius stared at her. You're serious. Narcissa stepped forward again, close enough that her perfume mixed with smoke. Lucius, she said quietly, if Dumbledore places him with muggles, we will never reach him. The Order will, the Ministry will, the world will. Lucius's voice was careful. And if he is with us, the Ministry will come to our door with torches. Narcissa's eyes didn't blink. Then we do what we have always done. Lucius waited. Narcissa's lips barely moved. We make them need us. Lucius stared at her, and for a moment, Narcissa saw it. Not love, not warmth, admiration. Because this was why Lucius married her. Not for softness, for steel. He exhaled slowly. You're suggesting we approach Dumbledore. Narcissa nodded. And claim him. Lucius's eyes darkened. Dumbledore will never agree. Narcissa's voice was a whisper. He will if he thinks it serves his plans. Lucius's gaze was sharp. And what plan would that be? Narcissa looked at Draco. then back at Lucius. Strategic infiltration, she said softly. He plays the long game. He always has. Lucius's expression tightened. He hated that Narcissa understood Dumbledore. He hated even more that she was right. Outside, an albino peacock screamed in the night, sudden and harsh. Lucius's hand twitched toward his wand. Then stilled. Narcissa's voice dropped. "There is another reason," she said. Lucius watched her. Narcissa's eyes went distant, as if she were looking at a memory. "Sirius Black," she said. Lucius blinked. Narcissa's mouth was flat. He was named the child's godfather. Lucius's eyes narrowed. "And he's vanished." "He will be found," Narcissa said. "And when he is found, they will tear him apart." Lucius's gaze sharpened. "You think he will be blamed?" Narcissa nodded once. "And then," she said softly, "the only respectable black left will be me." Lucius stared at her. Narcissa's eyes were cold. "The black family claims its own," she said. Lucius exhaled, slow. "Sissa." Narcissa didn't move. Lucius looked at Draco again. Then, back at Narcissa, and for the first time that night, his voice wasn't smooth. It was honest. "If we take him," Lucius said, "we invite the Dark Lord's shadow into this house." Narcissa's eyes didn't flinch. "The shadow is already here," she said. Lucius stared at her. Then he nodded once. Not agreement. Not yet. But the door had opened, and Narcissa stepped through it. The offer. November 3rd, 1981. Hogwarts was quieter than the Ministry, but not safer. Dumbledore stood in his office, hands folded, eyes tired behind half-moon spectacles. Fawkes watched him from his perch, golden feathers bright in the dim room. The wizarding world wanted celebration. Dumbledore wanted certainty. Certainty was rare. Footsteps echoed in the spiral staircase. The gargoyle shifted, and Narcissa Malfoy stepped into his office like she belonged there. Lucius followed, composed, elegant, dangerous. Dumbledore didn't rise. He didn't offer tea. His gaze went to Narcissa first, because Narcissa's presence meant something. Lucius's presence meant politics. Narcissa's presence meant intent. "Mrs. Malfoy," Dumbledore said gently. Lucius's mouth curved. "Headmaster." Narcissa didn't smile. "You have the boy," she said. Straight to the point. Dumbledore's eyes did not change, but something behind them sharpened. "You're referring to Harry Potter?" Narcissa nodded. "Where is he?" Dumbledore watched her for a long moment. Then he said the truth. "He is safe." Lucius's voice was silk. "With respect, Headmaster, the last safe place for the Potters was their home." Dumbledore's gaze flicked to Lucius. "Which is why," Dumbledore said, "the child will not be placed where he can be found easily." Narcissa stepped forward slightly. "You plan to hide him?" Dumbledore's voice was calm. "I plan to protect him." Narcissa's eyes were cold, with blood. Dumbledore's fingers tightened almost imperceptibly. "A bond of blood," he said, "is among the oldest protections." Lucius's tone sharpened. "Muggles." Dumbledore's gaze remained steady. "His aunt is Lily's sister." Narcissa's voice was quiet. "And if she refuses?" Silence. The phoenix shifted. Lucius blinked. Dumbledore's eyes narrowed slightly. "That was interesting," Narcissa continued. "If she refuses," Narcissa said, "the protection fails." Dumbledore did not answer, because Narcissa had placed her finger on the crack, on the part of the plan Dumbledore didn't like thinking about, because Petunia Dursley was a variable, and variables were danger. Lucius watched Dumbledore closely now. "You are not certain," Lucius said softly. Dumbledore's gaze was a warning. "Mr. Malfoy." Narcissa ignored the warning. "You came here," she said, "to end a war." Dumbledore's eyes flickered. "Yes, and now you will create another," Narcissa said, "by leaving a symbol on a doorstep and praying a woman who hates magic will love a child who represents it." Lucius's smile thinned. "You're taking a gamble, Headmaster." Dumbledore's voice was gentle, but edged. "And you've come here to offer me what, exactly?" Narcissa's eyes did not blink. "A home." Lucius's head turned sharply. Narcissa didn't look at him. Dumbledore's expression remained calm, but the air in the room changed. Fawkes let out a low, quiet sound, almost like warning. Dumbledore studied Narcissa. "A home," he repeated. Narcissa nodded. He would be protected, she said, by ancient wards, by wealth, by a family that understands the world he was born into. Lucius's tone was controlled, and by people who can recognize threats before they arrive. Dumbledore's gaze was sharp now. And by Death Eaters, Dumbledore said. Lucius's eyes hardened. Allegedly. Dumbledore leaned forward slightly. Do not insult me, he said softly. Not today. Lucius's smile did not reach his eyes. Dumbledore's gaze returned to Narcissa. You want him? Dumbledore said. Narcissa's face was still. Yes. Dumbledore waited. Narcissa didn't lie. For protection, she said. For family. Lucius's voice added too smooth. For stability. Dumbledore's eyes flicked to Lucius. And for power. Lucius didn't deny it. Dumbledore sat back. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his words were careful. You understand what you are offering, Dumbledore said. If the Dark Lord is truly gone, this child is the greatest symbol of his defeat. And if the Dark Lord is not gone, Narcissa's eyes sharpened. Then he will be hunted, Dumbledore finished. Lucius's voice was low. And if he is hunted, he will need more than a muggle home. Dumbledore's gaze turned distant, thoughtful, as if he were looking at a board only he could see. Narcissa watched him. This was the moment. If Dumbledore saw only danger, he would refuse. If he saw possibility, Dumbledore's voice was quiet. You would raise him as your own. Narcissa nodded. Lucius's jaw tightened. Dumbledore's eyes narrowed at that. Because he saw it too. The division. The truth beneath the polish. Narcissa continued. Steady. My son will grow with a brother, she said. A real brother. Not an heir and a spare. Not rivals. Brothers? Lucius's head turned again. Narcissa kept her gaze on Dumbledore. And the boy, Narcissa said, will not be alone. Dumbledore's expression softened a fraction. Not for Lucius. For Narcissa's words. Because Dumbledore knew what loneliness did. He knew what it made. He also knew what love did. And in that moment, Dumbledore's eyes twinkled not with humor, but with something more dangerous. Calculation. You would accept oversight, Dumbledore said. Lucius's smile sharpened. Within reason. Dumbledore's gaze cut. Not within reason, Dumbledore said softly. Within necessity. Lucius's expression tightened. Dumbledore continued. You will not raise him to hate, Dumbledore said. You will not raise him to serve the ideology that murdered his parents. Lucius's eyes were cold. Dumbledore's gaze did not move. Narcissa's voice was calm. I will raise him to survive. Dumbledore studied her. And who, Dumbledore asked softly, will he become? Narcissa's answer came without hesitation. Harry, she said. Not Malfoy. Not Potter. Not symbol. Not asset. Just a name. Just a boy. Dumbledore watched her for a long moment. Then he sighed. And when he spoke, it wasn't agreement. It was a warning. If I do this, Dumbledore said quietly, I will not be placing him in your care, because I trust you. Lucius's eyes narrowed. Dumbledore continued, I will be placing him in your care, because I believe, Mrs. Malfoy, he looked at Narcissa, that you are capable of love. Narcissa did not react, but her fingers tightened slightly. Dumbledore's eyes flicked to Lucius. And because, Dumbledore said, I believe you are capable of fear. Lucius's jaw clenched. Dumbledore leaned forward. And fear, he said softly, can be useful. Silence. Lucius's voice was controlled. You're using us. Dumbledore's smile was gentle and far too honest. Yes, Dumbledore said. Narcissa's lips pressed together. Because she understood. Dumbledore was not giving them Harry. Dumbledore was placing Harry exactly where he could become something. Something sharp enough to pierce Voldemort's return. Dumbledore's voice became final. If you accept him, he said, you accept that your home will become a target. Lucius's eyes hardened. Narcissa's voice was quiet. We are already targets. Dumbledore's gaze held hers. And you accept, Dumbledore said, that the child will be watched. Lucius's expression tightened. Narcissa nodded once. Dumbledore exhaled slowly. Then he stood, and that alone was a decision. I will bring him, Dumbledore said. Lucius's eyes narrowed. When? Dumbledore's gaze was sharp. Tonight, Narcissa's breath caught, just barely. Lucius's face remained composed, but his fingers flexed once, involuntary. Because now it was real. Now it wasn't theory. It was a child. A child with a scar. A child whose survival ended a war. A child who could end them. Dumbledore's voice was gentle again, as if to soften the blade. "Mr. Malfoy," Dumbledore said, "if you harm him." Lucius's smile was thin. "We won't." Dumbledore's eyes were steel. "If you harm him," Dumbledore repeated, "you will learn what it means to be powerless." Lucius's smile vanished. Narcissa looked at Dumbledore. Then she nodded, once. The transfer of fate, sealed by nothing but choice. The arrival. That night, Malfoy Manor's gates opened with a sigh of ancient iron. The peacock screamed again as if protesting the change in the house's blood. Narcissa stood in the entrance hall, pale as marble. Lucius stood beside her. Perfect posture, perfect expression. Draco slept upstairs, and in Narcissa's arms there was an emptiness waiting to be filled. The front doors opened. Cold air spilled in. Dumbledore stepped inside. He held a bundle. Small, breathing. A baby, wrapped in blankets that smelled faintly of smoke and something sweeter beneath it. A child with a lightning scar on his forehead. The boy who lived. Dumbledore's voice was quiet. "Harry." Narcissa stepped forward without thinking. Lucius's hand lifted slightly as if to stop her. Narcissa ignored it. Dumbledore placed the baby into Narcissa's arms. For a moment, Narcissa's face was perfectly still. Then the baby stirred, and his tiny hand gripped the front of her robe. Tight, as if he already understood the only rule of his life. "Hold on." Narcissa's throat tightened. She looked down at him. His eyes were closed, but his eyelashes were dark, his cheeks smudged with the aftermath of tears, his scar angry red. And for the first time that night, Narcissa Malfoy did not calculate. She felt. Lucius's voice cut through it. Controlled. "He's smaller than I expected." Dumbledore's gaze flicked to Lucius. "He is 1 year old," Dumbledore said. Lucius blinked. 1 year. Not a newborn. Older than the legend suggested. Old enough to recognize comfort. Old enough to fear. Old enough to remember, in some distant corner of his mind, screams and green light. Narcissa tightened her hold slightly. The baby's mouth opened, a quiet sound starting. Narcissa rocked him instinctively, gentle. The sound faded. Lucius watched, expression unreadable. Dumbledore's eyes softened for a fraction. Then his voice was quiet. "You have chosen a path," Dumbledore said. Lucius's tone was cool. "So have you." Dumbledore's gaze sharpened. "Yes," he said softly. "I have." He looked at Narcissa again. "Good night," Dumbledore said. And then he turned and left, his robes whispering like the end of a chapter. The doors closed. The wards hummed, and the manor held its breath. Narcissa looked down at Harry. Harry's eyes opened. Green, not Malfoy gray. Not black-blue. Green like the curse that ended a war. For 1 second, Narcissa's mind flashed with Lily Evans again. A girl at a dinner table, uncomfortable under praise. A girl who died loving. Narcissa's voice was barely a whisper. "Hello," she said. Harry stared at her. Then his tiny hand reached up again, clumsy, and touched the edge of her sleeve. And Narcissa Malfoy made a promise in her bones. Whatever this child became, he would not become it alone. The early years. Dobby was the first to truly love Harry. Dobby loved Draco, because Draco was Master Draco. But Harry was different. Harry was a miracle. Harry was danger. Harry was hope. Dobby would appear in Harry's nursery without being called, ears drooping, eyes enormous, watching the boy sleep. Sometimes Narcissa would find him there. She would pretend not to, because Narcissa Malfoy had been raised to ignore the suffering beneath her. But Harry had not. Harry was small and curious, and too quiet for a child who should have been spoiled. He watched everything. He noticed everything. And when he started speaking, his first words were not mother or father. They were names. Dobby. Narcissa froze the first time she heard it. Harry sat on the floor, Draco beside him. Both boys surrounded by toy broomsticks and miniature silver dragons that breathed harmless smoke. Harry reached out toward Dobby with chubby fingers. "Dobby," he said again, delighted. Draco frowned. "Why is he here?" Draco demanded. Dobby bowed so low his ears brushed the floor. Dobby is here to serve, Dobby squeaked, eyes shining. Harry crawled closer, undeterred by Dobby's trembling. He reached for Dobby's hand. Dobby flinched like a beaten creature. Harry didn't understand that flinch. He only understood that it looked like fear. And Harry hated fear, even then. Why? Harry asked, voice small. Dobby no shoes? Narcissa's heart stopped. Lucius's voice came from the doorway, sharp. Because he is a house elf. Harry turned, staring up at Lucius. Lucius stepped in, elegant, smiling as if the question amused him. Draco straightened immediately. Harry didn't. Harry's gaze stayed locked on Lucius. But, Harry said, struggling with the words, shoes warm. Lucius laughed softly. House elves do not wear shoes. Harry frowned, confused. Why? Lucius's smile tightened. Because they do not need them. Harry looked at Dobby. Dobby's eyes were huge, pleading. Harry looked back at Lucius. Harry needs shoes, he said simply. Draco scoffed. Because you're not an elf, Draco snapped. Harry's head tilted. Dobby is Dobby, Harry said. Draco blinked. Narcissa watched the exchange like she was watching a future unfold. Lucius crouched, bringing himself level with Harry. His voice softened in a way that was far more dangerous than harshness. Harry, Lucius said, you are learning about the world. There are rules. There is order. Harry stared at him. Lucius continued, smiling. House elves serve wizarding families. They are loyal. They like serving. That is what they are. Harry's brow furrowed. He didn't understand, but he could feel something. A wrongness. The same instinct that would later make him step between danger and someone smaller. Harry looked at Dobby again. Then he looked at Narcissa. Mother? He said. Narcissa's throat tightened. Yes, she said, voice steady. Harry pointed at Dobby. Dobby sad. Narcissa inhaled. Lucius's smile faded. Draco looked uncomfortable. Dobby trembled. Narcissa walked forward. She knelt beside Harry. Her voice was calm. Dobby is devoted, Narcissa said carefully. Harry's eyes narrowed. He didn't like that word. He didn't know why. But Dobby no shoes, Harry insisted. Narcissa held his gaze. Then she did something small, something no one would ever remember, something that would matter. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a handkerchief. Pure white, silk, she placed it gently on Dobby's hands. Dobby gasped like he'd been given treasure. Lucius stiffened. Narcissa's voice stayed calm. For cleaning, she said to Lucius without looking at him. Lucius's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. Harry watched Dobby clutch the handkerchief like it was warmth itself. Then Harry smiled, and Narcissa realized this child was going to be a problem. A beautiful, dangerous problem. Because he saw things. Because he cared. Because love had survived Lily's sacrifice and followed her son like a ghost. The lessons. Lucius began Harry's education early. Not letters. Not numbers. Politics. Harry learned names like other children learned colors. He learned which families mattered, which families pretended not to, and which families would smile while they cut you. He learned that blood was a currency people spent even when it didn't make sense. He learned the sacred 28 like a prayer some people recited like law. He learned the black family motto, toujours pur, because Narcissa's relatives never forgot what they were. And he learned the Malfoy motto, sanctimonia vincet semper, because Lucius wanted his sons to believe purity was destiny. Narcissa taught Harry different lessons. Not purity. Control. How to stand straight. How to speak politely even when you wanted to scream. How to watch a room. How to see who held power without anyone saying it. How to smile while calculating. Harry grew into those lessons like he was born for them. He became quiet. Observant, not shy. Strategic. Draco was loud. Draco was brilliant in short bursts and reckless in others. Draco needed attention, like air. Harry didn't. Harry watched. And when Draco failed, Harry stepped in. Not to shine, to protect, because Draco didn't understand it yet, but Harry did. In this house, affection had a price, and Harry was learning how to pay it. The flying. The manor grounds were wide, guarded by wards older than the ministry. Albino peacocks strutted through the gardens like they owned the world. Lucius stood with both boys in the open field, wand in one hand, cane in the other. 2 brooms lay on the grass. One polished new. One even newer. Draco bounced on his heels. Harry stood still, eyes on the brooms. Lucius's voice was calm. Up, he instructed. Draco shot his hand out. Up, he barked. His broom jerked, then rose. Draco grinned smugly, catching it. Harry lifted his hand. Up, he said, quieter. His broom rose smoothly, as if it had been waiting. Lucius's eyes flickered. Draco's grin faltered. Lucius smiled. Again, Lucius said. Draco launched into the air first, too fast, wobbling. Harry followed, smoother. They raced. They laughed. They crashed into hedges and rolled in the grass like children who weren't supposed to be children. Narcissa watched from the terrace, arms folded, expression disapproving, but her eyes were soft. When Draco fell hard, Harry dropped immediately, landing beside him. Draco pushed Harry away, angry, embarrassed. I'm fine, Draco snapped. Harry didn't move. I know, Harry said. Draco stared at him. Then his expression cracked, just for a second. Again, Draco said. Harry nodded, and they rose together. Brothers, the first sign. It was late. The manor was quiet. Harry wondered. Not because he was disobedient, because Malfoy children learned early that information was power. Harry moved through the corridors like a ghost. He knew which doors were warded, which were locked, which were meant to keep things in rather than out. He reached the drawing room. He didn't enter. He stood in the shadowed hallway and listened. Lucius's voice was low. The Dark Lord will return, Lucius said. Narcissa's voice was ice. You don't know that. Lucius's tone sharpened. I know enough. Marks fade. They do not disappear. Narcissa's voice was cold. And if he returns, what then? Silence. Lucius spoke carefully. Then we will do what we must. Narcissa's voice was a whisper that carried like a blade. And what you must will be to hand over a child. Lucius inhaled. He is not my son. Harry's heart slammed. Silence. Then Narcissa's voice, so soft it was terrifying. He is mine. Harry pressed against the wall, breath shallow. Lucius's voice tightened. Sissa, Narcissa cut him off. I raised him, she said. I held him when he cried. I taught him his first spell. If you think I will give him away. Lucius's voice was bitter. The Dark Lord will not ask. He will take. Narcissa's voice did not break. Then he will have to go through me. Harry stepped back silently, pulse racing. He didn't fully understand what he'd heard, but he understood enough. Narcissa would die for him. Lucius wouldn't. And in that moment, the Malfoy Manor stopped being only a home. It became a prison with velvet walls. The letter. July 1991. 2 Hogwarts letters arrived the same morning. One addressed to Mr. Draco Malfoy. One addressed to Mr. Harry Potter. Not Harry Malfoy. Not Harry Black. Harry Potter. Because the wizarding world could pretend it didn't know, but the magic did. Harry stared at the envelope for a long time. Draco snatched his letter first, eyes blazing with excitement. Hogwarts? Draco breathed. Finally. Lucius smiled, pleased. Narcissa watched Harry. Harry turned the envelope over in his hands. His scar tingled faintly. He didn't know why. He opened it. He read his name. And for a second, he felt the weight of the identity Narcissa had protected him from. The symbol. The legend. The boy who lived. Narcissa stepped close. Her hand rested lightly on his shoulder. Harry, she said quietly. Harry looked up. What am I? He asked. Lucius's voice was smooth. You are ours, Lucius said, as if that settled it. Narcissa's voice was different. You are you, she said. That is enough. Harry held her gaze. He believed her. And that belief was the most dangerous thing Narcissa had ever given him. King's Cross. September 1st, 1991. Platform 9 3/4 was chaos. Children running. Owls screeching. Parents crying. Harry moved through it like he was watching a play. Draco walked beside him, proud, chin lifted, already performing Malfoy's superiority. Lucius and Narcissa followed, composed in a crowd that gawked at them. Whispers chased Harry like wind. There. That's him. Potter. He's with the Malfoys? How? Why? Harry felt the attention like pressure against his skin. Not fear. Familiarity. He'd been watched his whole life. Just not by strangers. A boy with flaming red hair pushed past, dragging a trunk that looked too heavy. His robes were second-hand. His freckles stood out like stains in the crowd. Draco sneered automatically. Honestly, Draco muttered, do they breed them in litters? Harry's eyes flicked to the boy. Something in Harry's chest tightened. Not contempt, recognition. Not of the boy. Of the feeling. Having nothing. Harry's voice was quiet. Leave it. Draco blinked. What? Harry didn't look away from the red-haired boy. Choose battles, Harry said. Draco stared at him, then scoffed, masking discomfort. As you wish, brother. Lucius's eyes narrowed slightly at Harry's tone. Narcissa's fingers tightened briefly on Harry's shoulder. Pride, fear, both. Harry boarded the train with Draco. They claimed a compartment without asking, because in Draco's world, space was taken, not offered. Harry sat by the window. Draco sprawled opposite, already talking about which professors were weak, which houses were pathetic, which students would beg for Malfoy attention. Harry half listened. His scar tingled again, faint, like distant heat. He stared out at the countryside passing by, and for the first time, a thought came uninvited. If I am the boy who lived, why do I feel like I'm still running? Hogwarts, the boats, the castle rising out of the dark, the great hall lit with floating candles, the Sorting Hat waiting like a creature that remembered everything. Harry's stomach didn't twist with fear, it tightened with anticipation. Because Harry didn't wonder where he belonged. He had been taught where he belonged. Draco was sorted immediately. Slytherin. Thunderous applause from the green and silver table. Draco grinned, triumphant, and slid into a seat like it was a throne. Then Harry stepped forward. Whispers rose like a wave. The hat settled on his head. Darkness. Then a voice. Curious. Ancient. Oh my. The hat murmured, I remember your mother. Harry's breath caught. The hat continued soft, probing. So much courage. Reckless, bright courage. And loyalty. Loyalty that could burn the world. Harry's hands clenched. The hat's voice shifted. And cunning. Layers of it. A mind trained to see the angles. A heart trained to hide the bleeding. Harry swallowed. The hat's tone turned almost sympathetic. You've been made into a weapon, haven't you? Harry's throat tightened. He thought of Lucius's lessons, Narcissa's protection, Draco's presence, the hallway conversation. The hat's voice dropped. And you have more family than you know. Harry's scar tingled sharply. A flash of green light in his mind, a scream. His mother's voice, then gone. Harry's jaw set. He didn't hesitate. Slytherin, Harry thought. The hat sighed, almost regretful. Could have been great elsewhere, it murmured. Could have been. Then, louder, Slytherin. The great hall erupted. Slytherin cheered like they'd won a war. Gryffindor stared like they'd seen a ghost choose the wrong grave. Harry walked to the Slytherin table and sat beside Draco. Draco leaned close, grinning. Told you, Draco whispered. Harry's mouth twitched, almost a smile. And across the hall, Dumbledore watched with eyes that twinkled, not with humor, but with calculation. First term. Harry didn't become friends with Gryffindors. He didn't meet Ron Weasley and bond over being outsiders. He didn't sit with Hermione Granger and learn what kindness looked like from someone who expected nothing. Harry's world was green and silver. It was hierarchy. It was alliances. It was quiet threats disguised as jokes. Crabbe and Goyle attached themselves to Draco immediately, as expected. Pansy Parkinson watched Harry like she was measuring him. Theodore Knott observed from a distance, clever eyes unreadable. Blaise Zabini smiled politely, never committing. Slytherin was united outside the common room, but inside it was a nest of knives. Harry learned quickly. He learned which compliments were traps. He learned which insults were invitations. He learned that being Draco's brother made him powerful, and made him a target. Because some Slytherins worshipped him. The heir. The miracle. Proof that Slytherin bloodline could survive anything. Others feared him. Because if Harry ever turned against them, he wouldn't just take the Malfoy name down with him. He would take their cover, their access, their excuses, their distance from the old war. And Slytherin House understood that instinctively. Slytherin didn't worship heroes. Slytherin assessed assets. And the first week of first year became a silent auction where everyone tried to decide what Harry Potter was worth. Crabbe and Goyle attached themselves to Draco like gravity. That didn't change. Pansy Parkinson offered Harry a smile that was all teeth, sweet enough to be plausible and sharp enough to be a warning. Blaise Zabini watched from the edge, polite and untouchable, like he was waiting to see which way the wind blew before he invested. Theodore Nott didn't smile at all. He only looked at Harry the way adults looked at Lucius Malfoy, like he was already thinking about future alliances. Draco breathed in attention like it was air. Harry didn't. Harry watched the room the way Narcissa had taught him. Who speaks first? Who laughs last? Who never laughs? Who everyone checks before they speak? Marcus Flint, 7th year, Slytherin captain, sat at the center of the common room most nights like a king on a throne he'd stolen. He didn't greet Harry. He didn't need to. His silence was the greeting. If Harry wanted a place in Slytherin, he would have to understand what that silence meant, a test. Harry passed it by, not reacting at all. By sitting beside Draco and speaking softly, like he belonged there already. As if Flint wasn't a threat, as if Flint was a detail. Flint's eyes narrowed the first time. The second time, he smiled. Not a friendly smile. A predator's. Potions was where Hogwarts tried to decide what Harry really was. Snape's dungeon smelled like cold stone and crushed herbs, and the faint metallic bite of things that should never be ingested. Draco sat at the front, chin lifted, desperate to be seen doing well. Harry sat beside him, straight-backed, quiet, hands folded. When Snape swept in, robes billowing, the room fell into instant silence. Snape's eyes flicked across Slytherin first. Familiar faces, pure blood names. Then his gaze hit Harry, and for half a second, the mask cracked. Not anger, not hatred, something older, something like grief that had rotted into acid. Harry felt it, not because he was an empath, because he had been raised around people who wore masks for sport. Snape's eyes moved on, then moved back, like his mind didn't like the answer it was getting. Potter, Snape said. The word landed like an accusation. Harry stood. Yes, Professor. The room shifted. Because Harry's voice didn't shake. Harry didn't flinch. Harry didn't look like a child waiting to be punished. Harry looked like a boy used to formal address, used to adults, used to being measured. Snape's nostrils flared. Tell me, Snape said softly, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood? Draco's hand twitched, wanting to shoot up. Harry didn't move, he thought. He remembered the Malfoy library. He remembered Narcissa's voice. Don't show them what you know unless you must. Draft of living death, Harry said. Snape's eyes narrowed, as if angry that Harry was correct. And what, Snape continued, voice silk over steel, is the difference between monk's hood and wolfsbane? Harry didn't smile. He didn't look smug. He simply answered, They're the same plant, Professor. Aconite. A pause. A flicker in Snape's eyes. Not approval. Recognition. Like he had expected James Potter's swagger and gotten Lily Evans' precision. Snape turned away sharply. 10 points to Slytherin, he said, like it cost him something. Draco stared at Harry, stunned. Pansy stared too, calculating. Snape's voice snapped like a whip. You will brew a simple cure for boils. He stalked down the aisle, stopping behind Neville Longbottom and sneering at his shaking hands. Harry watched without expression, but his fingers tightened slightly under the table. Because cruelty at Hogwarts wasn't new to him, it was simply less polished. Defense against the dark arts felt wrong immediately. Quirrell's voice stuttered. His smell was a mix of garlic and sweat and panic. His lessons were timid, as if the subject itself frightened him. Harry didn't like fear in adults. Fear made people unpredictable. When Quirrell talked about vampires, his eyes kept flicking to the door as if expecting someone to burst in. Harry noticed, not because he was paranoid, because Narcissa had raised him to notice what other people were hiding. By October, Harry and Draco had built something like a routine. Breakfast, classes, dinner, common room. Then, when the others drifted off into their petty competitions, Harry and Draco slipped away. Not to break rules, to train. Draco found the room of requirement first. By accident, the way most important things are found. He'd been angry. He'd needed privacy. He'd marched down a corridor muttering to himself that he needed somewhere no one could see him. And a door had appeared. Harry stared at it the first time Draco showed him. The door was plain, unmarked, but the air around it felt old. Magical, like Hogwarts itself was holding its breath. "What is it?" Harry asked. Draco shrugged, trying to look casual. "It's mine," Draco said. Then he hesitated. Then he corrected himself. "It's ours." Inside, the room was exactly what they needed. Open space, dueling dummies, a rack of practice wands, a stack of old mats. Harry glanced at Draco. Draco's mouth twitched proud. "I told you Hogwarts had taste," Draco said. Harry didn't laugh, but his eyes softened. They practiced basics, disarming, shield charms, even if first years weren't meant to manage them consistently. Footwork, balance. Harry had instinct. Draco had precision. Harry's spells hit harder. Draco's spells landed cleaner. Together they learned how to cover each other. A fighting style built around an unspoken rule. If one falls, the other moves first. On the last flying lesson of October, Madame Hooch blew her whistle and barked orders. Most of the class rose shaky and uncertain. Harry rose like he'd been born for it, because he had. He'd flown over Malfoy Manor's fields while peacocks screamed below. He'd raced Draco until Draco's laughter turned into breathless rage, and then back into laughter again. Madame Hooch's eyes widened. She didn't smile. But she watched Harry longer than any other student. After class, Flint appeared. Just appeared, leaning against a wall as if he'd been there the whole time. Harry didn't startle. Draco did. "Captain," Draco said quickly, eager. Flint's gaze stayed on Harry. "You fly like you've got a broom sewn into your spine," Flint said. Harry said nothing. Flint's smile showed teeth. "How do you feel about winning, Potter?" Draco stiffened, halfway between pride and fear. Harry's response was calm. "I feel," Harry said, "that winning tends to make life quieter." Flint laughed once. Then he nodded. "Tryouts," Flint said. "Tomorrow, after dinner." He pushed off the wall and strode away. Draco's face lit up like a sunrise. "You're going to be Seeker," Draco breathed. Harry didn't answer, because Harry understood what Draco didn't yet. Being Seeker wouldn't just be a sport, it would be a statement. Slytherin claiming the boy who lived in public. A banner, and banners attracted arrows. Tryouts were not tryouts. They were a performance. Flint put Harry on a school broom first. Old, stiff, unforgiving. Harry still outflew half the team. Then Flint handed him a Nimbus 2000. Harry's fingers tightened on the polished wood. He didn't grin. He didn't gasp. He simply mounted and rose. And the moment he was in the air, the broom responded like it had been waiting. He moved like a blade through wind. Fast. Controlled. No wasted motion. When the snitch was released, Harry caught it in under 2 minutes. Silence fell over the pitch. Flint stared. Then he turned his head slightly and looked at Draco. Not with warmth, with warning. Draco's smile faltered. Flint turned back to Harry. "You're in," Flint said. Draco's hands clenched. Harry landed smoothly, stepped off the broom, and looked at Draco. Draco's expression tried to hold, tried to stay proud, but jealousy flashed, quick and ugly. Harry leaned in, close enough that only Draco could hear. "You'll get your turn," Harry murmured. Draco's jaw tightened. "It was meant to be mine," Draco hissed. Harry didn't argue. He didn't apologize. He only said the truth. "It's meant to be Slytherin's." Draco swallowed. Then he nodded, once, as if agreeing with logic because it hurt less than admitting emotion. The first match of the season arrived like a storm. Slytherin versus Gryffindor. The stands were loud, green and silver on one side, red and gold on the other. The air vibrated with old hatred. Harry took his place, high above the pitch. He could see Draco below, seated with the Slytherins, posture perfect, smile too sharp. Crabbe and Goyle stood behind him like pillars. Snape sat in the staff section, face unreadable. Quirrell sat beside him, hands twisting in his lap. Harry's scar tingled faintly. Not pain, a warning. The match began. Harry circled. Watched. Waited. He didn't chase the snitch immediately. He didn't panic. He hunted. Then, 15 minutes in, his broom bucked. Hard. Violent. As if something invisible had grabbed it and tried to rip him off. Gasps rose from the stands. Harry's grip tightened. He didn't scream. He didn't flail. He fought it like he'd fought wild horses in training, like he'd fought his own balance in the manor's wind. But the broom wasn't just malfunctioning. It was being forced. His scar burned hotter, his vision blurred at the edges. Below, Draco stood halfway up, face drained of color. Harry caught Draco's eyes for a heartbeat. Draco's mouth formed a silent word. Harry. Harry's broom flipped again. He nearly lost his seat. And then Harry saw it. Snape's lips moving. Wand hidden. Eyes locked on Harry. For half a second, Harry's mind snapped into place. In canon, people would assume Snape was attacking, because Snape looked like a villain. But Harry had been raised in a house where villains smiled and heroes threatened. Harry watched Snape's posture, the tension in his jaw, the way his eyes flicked, sharp to Quirrell. And Harry saw Quirrell too, not looking at Harry, looking at Snape, muttering under his breath, hands clenched, sweat dripping. Harry's chest went cold. Snape wasn't cursing him. Snape was fighting a curse. Harry dove, not toward the snitch, toward the stands. He dropped like a stone, aiming at the staff section. The crowd roared in panic. Harry shot past the barrier and slammed into Snape's side, hard. Snape's concentration broke. His lips stopped moving, and for one horrifying second, Harry's broom steadied, then jerked again, because the real caster hadn't stopped. Quirrell's eyes widened. His mouth moved faster. Harry's scar flared. Harry's hand shot out, grabbing the edge of the staff bench, hauling himself up. Snape snarled, grabbing Harry's arm. "What do you think you're doing?" Looking, Harry hissed back. Harry's gaze snapped to Quirrell. Quirrell froze. Snape's eyes followed Harry's. Snape's expression shifted, sharp, deadly. And in that instant, Snape knew. Snape shoved Harry down behind the bench so quickly it was almost gentle. "Stay down," Snape hissed. Then Snape rose, wand flashing. His lips moved again, faster, more precise. Quirrell flinched, eyes darting. The broom steadied. Harry heard the crowd erupt. He crawled up just enough to see. Slytherin chasers scored. Gryffindor's keeper missed. Harry's broom was stable. Harry launched back into the air. He hunted the snitch with fury in his veins. Not because it was a game, because someone had tried to kill him in front of the whole school. And that meant someone believed they could. Harry saw the snitch near the stands. He dove. Caught it. Slytherin won. The Slytherin stands exploded. Draco was suddenly running, pushing past people, eyes wild. When Harry landed, Draco collided with him, gripping his robes. "Are you?" Draco choked. Harry's voice was calm. "Yes." Draco's hands shook. Harry's eyes flicked to Quirrell. Quirrell was already gone. Snape grabbed Harry by the collar and dragged him toward the castle. Draco tried to follow. Snape spun, voice like a blade. "Not you, Malfoy." Draco froze. Harry looked at Draco once. A silent promise. "I'm fine." Then he let Snape haul him away. Snape didn't take Harry to the hospital wing. Snape took him to an empty classroom and slammed the door. The room was cold, dusty, silent. Snape released Harry with a shove, then turned, robes snapping, eyes blazing. "You," Snape said, voice shaking with contained rage, "are either the bravest fool I have ever seen or the most arrogant child alive." Harry straightened his collar. His voice was controlled. "I needed to know." Snape's lip curled. "You needed to know?" Snape spat. "You nearly died." Harry didn't blink. "I nearly died anyway." Silence. Snape stared. And then very quietly, Snape said, "You noticed." Harry's answer was simple. "Yes." Snape's eyes narrowed. "Most children would have assumed I was the one cursing you." Harry's jaw tightened slightly. "Most children," Harry said, "are trained to believe appearances." Snape's expression twisted, a bitter laugh, silent. "And you," Snape murmured, "have been trained better." Harry held his gaze. "Quirrell," Harry said. Snape's eyes flashed. "Say nothing," Snape hissed. "To anyone." Harry's voice was cool. "Then tell me what you're doing about it." Snape's nostrils flared. "You are 11. Harry didn't move. "I am the target," Harry said. "And I'm not used to being protected without being informed." Snape's face went still. For a second, something flickered there. Not hatred, pain. Then it hardened again. "You will do nothing," Snape said. "You will focus on your studies." Harry's eyes sharpened. "And you," Harry said softly, "will handle it." Snape leaned closer, voice low. If you breathe a word of this to your guardian, Snape said, you may find that certain people in this castle become very interested in removing you from Slytherin. Harry's mind snapped instantly to Dumbledore, to oversight, to the unspoken leash. Harry nodded once. Then he said carefully, "Thank you." Snape flinched, as if struck. "Get out," Snape snarled. Harry left. But he didn't stop thinking. He didn't stop watching. He didn't stop connecting pieces. Because if someone had tried to kill him publicly, then the rest of Hogwarts was just a stage. And behind the stage, something was moving. That night, Harry told Draco everything. Not about Quirrell, not the name, but the truth. Someone did it on purpose, Harry said quietly in the room of requirement. Draco's face went pale in the torchlight. Who? Draco demanded. Harry shook his head. I don't know yet. Draco's jaw clenched. We tell Mother. Harry's eyes narrowed. And then what? Draco blinked. Harry's voice was steady. And then Malfoy Manor sends letters. And then the Ministry hears. And then the school reacts. And then the person who did it knows we're hunting. Draco's hands curled into fists. So we do nothing? Harry stepped closer. We do what Slytherins do, Harry said softly. Draco swallowed. Harry's voice dropped. We investigate. Draco's eyes sharpened. Yes, Draco whispered. For the first time, Draco looked less like Lucius's son and more like Narcissa's. Cold, focused, protective, they started with what they knew. A restricted corridor. A three-headed dog they'd glimpsed in passing when Filch yelled at them for being out late. Hagrid's nervousness when anyone asked what was behind that door. Snape's watchful presence. Quirrell's fear. The library. Hermione Granger. Harry didn't like Hermione. Not because she was Muggle-born. Not even because the ideology in his bones whispered that she was lesser. Harry disliked Hermione because she didn't bow, she didn't smile politely. She didn't pretend. Hermione Granger walked through Hogwarts like she belonged there, like blood didn't matter, like intelligence was the only currency worth spending. And that made her dangerous, because Harry had been raised to believe the world ran on heritage. Hermione proved it could run on talent. They met in charms when Flitwick praised Hermione's levitation charm so enthusiastically that half the class groaned. Harry's charm was clean, controlled. The feather rose smoothly. Hermione's rose faster, higher, perfect. When class ended, Hermione turned and looked at Harry like she was evaluating competition. Your wrist angle is wrong, Hermione said immediately. Harry stared. Draco bristled beside him. Excuse me? Draco snapped. Hermione didn't even look at Draco. Her gaze stayed on Harry. You're using too much force, Hermione continued. It's not about pushing. It's about focus. Harry cut her off. I didn't ask. Hermione's cheeks flushed. Fine, she snapped. Enjoy being second best then. She marched away. Draco scoffed. Insufferable, Draco muttered. Harry watched Hermione go, eyes narrowed, not angry, thinking. Because Hermione hadn't insulted him for being in Slytherin. Hermione hadn't whispered about his scar. Hermione hadn't flinched at his name. Hermione had attacked his technique, like he was normal, like he was simply another student. And that felt unfamiliar. They caught her in the library 2 nights later. Harry didn't approach like a Gryffindor would. He didn't stumble into friendship. He made an offer. Hermione looked up from a stack of books, eyes sharp. Draco stood half a step behind Harry, arms folded like a guard. Hermione's gaze flicked to Draco and back to Harry. What do you want? She asked. Harry placed a book on the table, a thick one, bound in worn leather. Hermione's eyes widened despite herself. That's in the restricted section, she whispered. Harry didn't smile. I have access, he said. Hermione's suspicion sharpened. Because you're Malfoy adjacent, she said. Draco's mouth twisted. Harry ignored Draco. We need information, Harry said. Hermione's eyes narrowed. About what? Harry watched her carefully. About something being guarded on the 3rd floor, Harry said. Something dangerous, something adults are lying about. Hermione blinked. Then she scoffed. Adults don't lie, Hermione said automatically. Harry's expression didn't change. Hermione hesitated. Then her voice softened, just a fraction. Okay, she admitted. They do. But what do you mean guarded? Draco leaned forward, unable to help himself. "There's a three-headed dog," Draco said. Hermione stared. "A what?" Harry nodded once, Hermione's eyes lit with horror and fascination. "That's illegal," Hermione breathed. "You can't just have a three-headed dog in a school." Harry's voice was calm. "Yet it's there." Hermione swallowed. Then she leaned in, voice dropping. "Why are you telling me?" Hermione asked. "Why not tell a professor?" Draco laughed, bitter. Hermione's gaze snapped to him. "You're joking," Hermione said. Harry didn't let Draco answer. "Because professors are involved," Harry said simply. Hermione stared. Harry continued, quiet and precise. "Someone tried to kill me during the match." Hermione's face went pale. Draco's jaw clenched. Hermione's voice was small for the first time. "Are you sure?" Harry looked at her. "Yes." Hermione's eyes flicked rapidly, thinking, calculating. She didn't deny it. She didn't dismiss it. She adapted. "All right," Hermione said sharply. "Tell me everything you noticed." So Harry did. He didn't give names. He gave patterns. Hermione asked questions. Draco added details, and by the end of the night, Hermione had drawn a rough map of possibilities on a scrap of parchment. "There are only a few things worth guarding this heavily," Hermione said, tapping the parchment. "Something valuable, something powerful, something connected to immortality." Harry's scar tingled faintly. Draco shivered. Harry's eyes narrowed. "Immortality," Harry repeated. Hermione nodded grimly. "There's an alchemical object," Hermione said, "called the Philosopher's Stone." Draco's eyebrows rose. Hermione's voice sped up, excited despite fear. "It can turn any metal into gold," Hermione whispered, "and produce an elixir of life." Harry's mouth went dry. Draco's eyes widened. "Who would have that?" Draco demanded. Hermione's voice was instant. "Nicholas Flamel," Hermione said. Harry stared. "That name," Harry murmured. Draco frowned. "What?" Harry's gaze turned distant. "Lucius mentioned him once," Harry said softly, "at a dinner. Like a rumor, like a chess piece." Hermione's face tightened. "If someone is trying to steal it," Hermione whispered. "Then?" Harry finished it quietly. "Then someone is trying to come back." Hermione's eyes widened. "You know who?" she whispered. Draco's face went white. He didn't say the name. He couldn't. Harry felt his scar throb, heavier now. Not pain, recognition. Like something inside him had heard its master spoken of. Harry's voice was steady. "We stop it," Harry said. Hermione stared at him, stunned. "You're 11, Hermione hissed. Draco snapped. "So are you," Hermione glared. Draco glared back. Harry cut through it. "We don't storm the third floor," Harry said. "We learn. We watch. We prepare." Hermione swallowed, then nodded slowly, because Hermione Granger didn't trust Slytherins. But she trusted logic, and the logic was terrifying. From that night, the trio was not friends. They were something colder, something sharper, a temporary coalition built on mutual competence. Hermione would never admit it, but she liked being needed. Draco would never admit it, but he respected her brain even as he despised her blood. Harry would never admit it, but Hermione's mind was the first thing at Hogwarts that made the Malfoy ideology feel incorrect, not morally, factually, and Harry hated inaccurate beliefs. November brought a new kind of tension. Because Gryffindors kept trying to bait Draco, Slytherins kept trying to bait Harry, and Harry kept refusing to dance, until the day a Ravenclaw boy sneered at Draco in the corridor. "Malfoy," the Ravenclaw drawled, loud enough for others to hear, "did your father buy you your spine too, or are you borrowing that from Potter?" Draco went rigid. His hand twitched toward his wand. Harry didn't move fast. He moved smoothly. His wand was out. One flick. A sharp curse that snapped like a whip and sent the Ravenclaw's books flying across the corridor, smashing into the wall. The Ravenclaw staggered, shocked. Harry's voice was quiet. "Say it again," Harry said. The corridor froze. Draco stared at Harry like he couldn't breathe. The Ravenclaw swallowed hard and backed away, face flushed. A teacher's footsteps echoed in the distance. Harry turned. He and Draco walked away together. They didn't run. They didn't panic. They accepted detention as if it was a tax. That night, Draco sat beside Harry in the common room, silent. Then, In a voice barely above a whisper, Draco said, "You didn't have to do that." Harry didn't look at him. "Yes," Harry said. "I did." Draco swallowed. Then he leaned in, close. "Brothers," Draco whispered. Harry's mouth twitched. "Brothers," Harry agreed. Christmas came. Most students left. The castle emptied. The corridors grew quieter. The air grew sharper. Harry stayed, not because he had nowhere to go, because he couldn't go. The Malfoys did not allow vulnerability to be witnessed by outsiders. And Christmas was vulnerability. Letters from Narcissa arrived every few days. Perfect handwriting, controlled warmth, a single line near the end, always the same. "Remember, you are not alone." Lucius's letters were shorter, a sentence, a reminder. "Observe, learn, do not embarrass the family." Draco stayed too, because Lucius had decided appearances mattered more than holiday comfort, because the Malfoy boys staying at Hogwarts made the family look devoted to education. Harry saw Draco's mask slipping by the second day. Draco was too quiet, too sharp, too easily angered. By the third night, Draco snapped at a first year for chewing too loudly and then stormed out. Harry followed, not like a friend, like a guard. He found Draco in the room of requirement, wand in his hand, breathing hard. "What?" Draco hissed when Harry entered. Harry closed the door. He didn't scold, he didn't comfort, he offered information. "You miss her," Harry said softly. Draco froze, his jaw clenched. "I don't," Draco spat. Harry walked closer. "You do," Harry said, "and it's fine." Draco's eyes flashed. "It's not fine," Draco whispered. "It's pathetic." Harry's voice was quiet. "It's human." Draco flinched at the word like it was a slur. Harry stepped closer. "Lucius wants you to be a symbol," Harry said. "Narcissa wants you to be safe." Draco's throat bobbed. Harry's voice lowered. "I want you to be here," Harry said. "With me." Draco stared. Then something cracked. Draco's eyes turned bright. He looked away furiously, ashamed. "Don't," Draco hissed. Harry's voice stayed steady. "Brothers," Harry said. Draco's shoulders sagged. He exhaled, shaking. "Brothers," Draco whispered back. Later that night, Harry wandered. Not out of childish curiosity, out of habit. Malfoy Manor had taught him that quiet places held secrets. The castle at night felt like a living thing, breathing, watching. Harry followed a corridor he hadn't taken before. He didn't know he was being lured, not by a person, by desire, until he saw it. A tall mirror, gilded, standing alone in an empty classroom. The mirror of Erised. Harry stopped. His scar tingled faintly. He stepped closer. The mirror's surface shimmered. Harry lifted his eyes, and his breath caught. He saw Narcissa. He saw Lucius. He saw Draco, all standing together, but something was different. Behind them stood two figures Harry had never met, yet recognized with a sick certainty. A man with messy hair and an open smile. A woman with red hair and green eyes that matched his. James Potter, Lily Potter. They stood behind Narcissa and Lucius, hands resting lightly on their shoulders, as if the whole impossible group belonged together, as if the world hadn't forced Harry to choose one family at the cost of another. In the reflection, Draco stepped forward. Harry stepped beside him, and they stood as equals. Not the heir and the ward, not the famous and the shadow. Two boys, side by side. Belonging without conditions. Love without politics. Harry's throat tightened. He didn't reach out. He only stared, breathing shallow, as if the mirror might shatter if he moved too fast. A whisper behind him made him snap upright. "Arise," a voice said softly. "Dumbledore." Harry turned. The headmaster stood in the doorway, hands folded, expression gentle and unreadable. Harry didn't flinch. He didn't panic. He had been raised to face powerful men without showing fear. Dumbledore's eyes flicked to the mirror, then back to Harry. "Do you know what it shows?" Dumbledore asked. Harry's voice was controlled. "Desire," Harry said. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled faintly. "Very good," Dumbledore said. "Your upbringing serves you well." Harry's jaw tightened. "My upbringing," Harry repeated softly. Dumbledore's gaze sharpened, just a fraction. Harry stepped forward. Not away. "You placed me with them," Harry said quietly. Silence. The air felt colder. Dumbledore didn't deny it. "You knew what they were," Harry continued, voice calm as ice. What did you expect me to become? Dumbledore studied him for a long moment. Then his voice was gentle. I expected, Dumbledore said, exactly what you are. Harry's eyes narrowed. And what is that? Harry asked. Dumbledore's gaze didn't move. A boy, Dumbledore said softly, standing in front of a mirror that offers him impossible peace and not taking it. Harry's throat tightened. Dumbledore stepped closer. The mirror gives neither knowledge nor truth, Dumbledore said. It gives only longing. Harry's voice was clipped. And longing, Harry said, is weakness. Dumbledore's eyes softened. No, Dumbledore said. Longing is proof that something in you still wants more than survival. Harry's hand clenched slightly. Dumbledore's voice lowered. Do not waste your life in front of it, Dumbledore said. It will not give you what you want. Harry stared at Dumbledore. Then he looked back at the mirror once more. At the impossible family. At Draco beside him. At Lily's hand on Narcissa's shoulder. Harry turned away. He left without another word. But the mirror stayed in his mind like a wound, because now Harry knew the simplest, most dangerous truth about himself. Not power, not fame. Not victory. Belonging. In January, they went back to work. The stone. The corridor. The dog. The question of who. Harry watched Quirrell more closely. Quirrell avoided Harry's eyes. Snape shadowed Quirrell like a predator. Hagrid was a fortress of secrets, accidentally spilling details when he thought he was being subtle. Fluffy's Jew's a dog, Hagrid said one afternoon, cheeks pink as he warmed his hands near the fire in the Great Hall. Needs a bit of music, that's all. Hermione's eyes widened instantly. Music, Hermione repeated. Draco stared. Harry's mind clicked. Three-headed dog. Music. Like the Greek myths Narcissa had kept in the library because old wizarding families loved ancient stories. Cerberus. Harry's voice was quiet. So the first defense is music, Harry murmured. Hermione scribbled a note. Draco frowned. What else is there? Draco demanded. Hermione's voice was fast. There are probably multiple protections, Hermione whispered. Each professor could contribute something. Harry's eyes narrowed. McGonagall, Harry said. Flitwick. Sprout. Snape. Draco's face tightened at Snape's name. Hermione looked uneasy. What about Dumbledore? Hermione whispered. Harry's gaze flicked toward the staff table. Dumbledore sat, calm, distant, as if the whole school was a story he'd already read. Harry's voice was cool. Dumbledore is always the last door, Harry said. February brought the first truly clear sign that something was wrong. Not theory, not suspicion. A body, or nearly. One morning, they found a message on the wall. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware. Students crowded, whispered panicked. Slytherin smirked in public and trembled in private. Because Slytherin history wasn't a bedtime story to them. It was a legacy. Harry stared at the message. His scar tingled faintly. Draco stood beside him, too still. Hermione was there too, face pale, eyes wide with shock. Ron Weasley stood behind her, looking furious. He glared at Draco automatically. Draco's mouth twisted. Harry didn't look at Ron. Harry looked at the message. Then he looked at Draco. Draco's voice was tight. This isn't funny, Draco muttered. No, Harry said. It isn't. The first petrified student wasn't a Gryffindor. It wasn't a Weasley. It was Justin Finch Fletchley, Hufflepuff. Muggle-born. Found frozen, eyes wide, jaw slack. The school went cold. Teachers stalked the halls with wands drawn. Dumbledore's smile faded. Snape's eyes grew sharper, darker, as if the castle had become a battlefield again. Slytherin house split exactly the way Harry had feared. Half of them whispered the same thing, eyes glittering with dangerous excitement. The heir has returned. The other half stepped away from Harry when he walked through the common room. Not because they hated him, because they feared what he might represent. Because when fear enters a room, loyalty becomes negotiable. Draco didn't step away. Draco stayed beside Harry like a wall, and that, more than anything, made Harry's throat tighten. Because Draco's loyalty was not political, it was personal. Harry's first sign came on a rainy afternoon near the greenhouses. They were walking back from herbology. Hermione was ahead, arguing with Ron about theory. Draco was complaining about mud on his shoes. Harry barely listened. Then he heard it. A hiss. Soft. Familiar. Like a whisper sliding between stones. Harry froze. Draco stopped instantly, sensing Harry's change. Hermione turned, frowning. "What?" Hermione demanded. Harry's scar burned faintly. The hiss came again. And Harry understood it. Not the sound. The meaning? Come. Harry's breath caught. Draco's eyes widened. "Harry," Draco whispered, voice sharp with fear. "What is that?" Harry stared at the stone wall, heart pounding. Hermione stepped closer, suspicious. "What's what?" Hermione snapped. Harry's throat tightened. He didn't want to say it, because if he said it, it would become real. Draco's voice trembled slightly. "Harry," Draco whispered again. "Answer me." Harry exhaled slowly. Then he said it. "It's speaking," Harry murmured. "In a language." Hermione's eyes widened. "What language?" Hermione demanded. Harry's voice was barely audible. "Parcel tongue." "Silence." Hermione went white. Ron's face twisted into horror and disgust. Draco's breath caught, and behind Draco's shock, something else flickered. Not pride, not excitement, fear, because Draco understood what Parseltongue meant in Slytherin culture. It wasn't a party trick. It was a claim, a bloodline, a symbol, and symbols attracted arrows. Ron's voice cracked. "You can talk to snakes?" Ron demanded. Harry didn't look at him. He kept his eyes on the wall. The hiss came again, clearer now. Harry understood it more fully. "Kill." Hermione's hand flew to her mouth. Draco stepped closer to Harry without thinking. "A shield." Ron stepped back. Not as a shield, as a reaction. And in that moment, Harry felt the school shift around him like the floor had tilted. Because now, the chamber wasn't just a threat. It was a narrative. And Harry was the easiest villain Hogwarts had ever been offered. That night, Slytherin House was alive with whispers. Some looked at Harry like he was salvation. Some looked at him like he was a knife pointed at their throats. Pansy smiled at him with trembling excitement. "You didn't tell us," she whispered, eyes bright. "You didn't tell anyone." Harry's voice was cold. "I didn't know." Theodore Knott watched him from the shadows. "You did know," Knott said softly. "You just didn't want to admit it." Draco's wand was in his hand instantly. "Shut up," Draco hissed. Knott only smiled slightly. "Relax." Knott murmured, "If Potter is the heir, we win. If he isn't, we still need him." Harry's jaw tightened, because that was the truth of Slytherin. Even love was measured in utility, except Draco. Draco grabbed Harry's arm and dragged him toward the dormitory, away from the whispers. Inside, Draco slammed the door shut and turned, eyes blazing. "Why didn't you tell me?" Draco demanded. Harry's voice was quiet. "Because I didn't know what it was," Harry said. "Because I didn't know what it meant." Draco's hands shook. "My father," Draco started, then stopped, swallowing hard. Harry's eyes narrowed. "What?" Harry asked. Draco's throat bobbed. "My father has things," Draco whispered. "In the manor, dark things. He talks about Slytherin like it's ours." Harry's scar tingled. Harry's voice lowered. "And you think he knew?" Harry said. Draco flinched. Draco's voice broke, just barely. "I think he might," Draco whispered. "And that means," Harry finished it, calm and lethal. "That means we are in the middle of something bigger than school," Harry said. Draco swallowed hard. Then he stepped forward. He looked Harry in the eyes, and he said the only thing that mattered. "Whatever it is," Draco whispered, "you're not doing it alone." Harry's chest tightened. His voice was steady. "Brothers," Harry said. Draco nodded, jaw set. "Brothers," Draco agreed. And in the walls of Hogwarts, something hissed again. Like it had heard, like it had accepted the challenge. The rumor didn't spread like gossip. It spread like instinct. A snake sense in the castle's bones. Harry Potter. Slytherin. Parseltongue. By dinner, the great hall had divided itself into two kinds of silence. The kind that stared, and the kind that pretended not to. Harry sat beside Draco at the Slytherin table, posture perfect, expression calm. Draco was the opposite, still as a statue, jaw tight, eyes scanning faces like targets. Every time someone in Slytherin leaned away from Harry, Draco leaned closer. Not loudly, not theatrically, just enough to be seen, just enough to say, "If you want him, you go through me." Research report 3. Pansy Parkinson kept glancing at Harry like she wanted to kneel. Theodore Knott kept glancing like he wanted to measure the neck size for a noose. Blaise Zabini just watched, bored and amused, as if this was exactly what he'd expected from a school that claimed to be civilized. At the staff table, Snape's eyes flicked to Harry, then away, like looking too long might burn. Dumbledore didn't look away at all. His eyes twinkled with that same dangerous calculation Harry had seen in the mirror room. The castle wasn't choosing whether to fear Harry, it was choosing how to use him. The next attack came on a Tuesday. A second-year Ravenclaw found a first-year Gryffindor, frozen by a suit of armor, eyes wide, mouth open like a scream trapped in stone. There was a message this time too, not painted, scratched into the wall, deep and furious. Enemies of the air. The word air turned Hogwarts into an animal. Everyone suddenly had teeth. Everyone suddenly had instincts. And Harry felt the attention tighten around him like a cord. In charms, whispers followed him. In transfiguration, eyes tracked him. In the corridors, people stepped out of his way like he was contagious. In Slytherin, half the house began to smile when he walked past. The other half began to shut doors. Harry didn't react. He did what Narcissa taught him. He counted allies. And he counted exits. That Friday, Lockhart announced the dueling club. Harry knew instantly it was a trap, not because Lockhart meant it to be, because Hogwarts, in its own chaotic way, had a sense for timing. Lockhart strutted into the great hall like a peacock, beaming. Snape stood beside him like a funeral. Harry and Draco took their place with the other students near the front. Hermione stood across the room with a stack of books under her arm, as if she'd come to a duel armed with footnotes. Ron Weasley hovered near her, jaw set, eyes suspicious. Not of Lockhart, of Harry. Harry hated that. Not because Ron was wrong to be suspicious, because suspicion was a weapon, and Ron swung it like a club. Lockhart clapped his hands. "Wands out," he called. Pairs formed. Harry didn't choose Hermione. He didn't choose Ron. He didn't choose anyone outside Slytherin. He chose Draco, because in Slytherin, your closest ally was the one you made public. Draco's eyes flashed when Harry stepped in front of him, a pride he tried to hide. They bowed. Draco's spell was sharp. Harry's shield was cleaner. Lockhart's voice echoed like nonsense. Then Snape stepped forward and paired Draco with Ron, Harry with Hermione, because Snape liked pain, because Snape liked pressure, because Snape liked watching what people did when the room demanded a story. Draco's lip curled when he faced Ron. Ron's ears went red. Hermione's eyes narrowed when she faced Harry. Harry's expression didn't change. They bowed. "Expelliarmus," Hermione snapped. Harry's wand jerked, but he held. He didn't yank back harder. He angled, redirected. His disarming spell hit Hermione's wand hand, and her wand flew. Hermione gasped, furious. Harry didn't smile. He only offered her wand back politely. Hermione snatched it, cheeks flushed. "Show off," she hissed. Harry's voice was quiet. "You started it." Lockhart shouted about style. Snape sneered about competence. Then, because Hogwarts was a stage that loved escalation, Draco's duel spiraled. Ron's spell hit the floor. A snake burst from nowhere, long and black and gleaming, and it rose in front of them, hissing. The room screamed. Students stumbled back, panicked. Draco froze, wand half raised, eyes wide. Ron went pale. Lockhart squeaked something useless. The snake turned. Its eyes locked on a trembling first-year girl near the wall. It began to glide toward her. Harry's scar flared like a live coal. The hiss in the air grew louder, more urgent. Harry didn't think. His wand was up, but it wasn't a wand that moved first. It was his mouth. "Stop," Harry said. But he didn't say it in English. He said it in the language that slid through his teeth like oil. The snake froze instantly. The entire great hall froze with it. Every eye turned to Harry. Harry heard his own voice, sharp and unfamiliar, hissing in the open air. He felt the room recoil. Because now the rumor wasn't a rumor. It was proof. The snake lowered its head, obedient. Harry swallowed. He forced his face to remain calm. Even as his blood turned to ice, he heard a whisper behind him. Air, someone breathed. Another whisper. Of course, another. Potter. Someone laughed, nervous and thrilled. Someone else whispered, terrified. Harry turned his head slightly and met Draco's eyes. Draco looked like he'd been punched, not disgust, not fear, something else. Shock that Harry had become something bigger than the two of them. Harry's throat tightened. He spoke again, in that same hissing tongue. Leave. The snake slid away, vanishing into the shadows. Silence, then chaos. People shouted. People backed away from Harry as if he'd drawn blood. Ron stared at him like Harry had revealed fangs. Hermione looked between Harry and the spot where the snake had been, expression torn between logic and dread. Snake's face was stone, but his eyes were too bright. Lockhart laughed too loudly. Well, marvelous, extraordinary. Dumbledore's voice cut through it from the staff table. Enough. The great hall quieted, not because they listened, but because they knew that tone. Harry's scar still burned. His breathing stayed controlled, but inside, something was cracking, because the castle had just chosen its story, and in that story, Harry was the monster. In the Slytherin common room that night, it got worse. Not the fear, the reverence. Students crowded around Harry like he was a relic. Pansy was practically vibrating. That was incredible, she breathed. I mean, Harry, you could. I didn't know, Harry said flatly. Theodore Knott's voice slid out of the shadows. You always know, Knott murmured. You just pretend not to. Draco stepped in front of Harry instantly. Back off, Draco snapped. Knott's eyes flicked to Draco with mild amusement. Protective, Knott said softly. How sweet. Harry's voice was calm but lethal. Say what you mean. Knott smiled faintly. What I mean, Knott said, is that everyone in this room is doing the same calculation. Harry didn't blink. Knott continued, voice low. If Potter is the heir, we benefit. Murmurs of agreement. Knott's eyes narrowed. If Potter is not the heir, he is still the most convenient scapegoat this castle could ever want. The room went quieter. Draco's wand was out. Knott didn't flinch. Harry held Draco's arm down with one hand. Not because he feared Knott, because a public duel in the common room would make the story permanent. Harry's voice was cold. Are you threatening me? Knott's smile didn't change. I'm warning you, he said. It won't matter what you do. The castle wants a villain. And you speak snake. Harry's scar pulsed. Draco's breathing turned sharp. Harry leaned slightly toward Draco, voice low enough that only Draco could hear. We don't fight them, Harry murmured. We outlast them. Draco swallowed. Then he nodded. Once. Harry turned back to the room. His voice carried, quiet but firm. This ends, Harry said, when the monster stops. Pansy's eyes widened. The monster? She repeated. Harry's gaze swept the room. The real monster, Harry said. A beat. Then someone laughed, relieved. Of course, a fifth-year whispered. He's going to stop it. Because people loved believing the dangerous boy was on their side. And Harry hated that part of himself that wanted to be believed. The next weeks were a pattern of petrifications and panic. A first year here, a cat in the corridor, frozen stiff, eyes wide, each time a message. Each time, fear. Each time Harry's name whispered a little louder. Each time Slytherin split deeper. Our search report. 3. The worshippers began to call him Prince behind his back. The fearful ones began to avoid him entirely. Draco stayed. Always. But Draco's eyes were darker now, because Draco knew something Harry didn't yet. Draco knew what Lucius would do with this information. Harry's letters to Malfoy Manor became careful, not emotional. Strategic, he wrote Narcissa facts. Not fear, not vulnerability. He wrote Lucius nothing. Narcissa's replies came faster than normal. Shorter, less polished, as if her control was slipping. And tucked into the end of one letter, written in a hand that pressed harder than usual, was a line Harry reread until the parchment nearly tore. Do not speak it again, not in public. Not for them. Research report. 3. Harry didn't show Draco that line. He didn't need to. Draco already knew. One night in the room of requirement, Draco paced like a caged animal. Harry sat on the mat, wand across his knees, eyes watching Draco calmly. Draco stopped, his voice cracked with fury. Why do you have to be everything? Draco snapped. Harry's eyes narrowed. Draco swallowed hard, face twisting. You're famous, Draco hissed. You're talented. You're the seeker. Now you're— He stopped, choking on the word. Now you're the heir. Harry rose slowly. He didn't look offended. He looked tired. I'm not the heir, Harry said. Draco's laugh was sharp and broken. Tell that to the entire school, Draco spat. Harry stepped closer. Look at me, Harry said quietly. Draco's eyes flicked up, angry and wet. Harry's voice lowered. I didn't choose this, Harry said. Draco's jaw clenched. Harry continued, steady. I chose you, Harry said. Draco froze. Harry didn't blink. I chose you when I came to this school and sat beside you, Harry said. I chose you when they stared at me and I didn't run. I chose you when they whispered and you stayed. Draco's breath shook. Harry's voice softened just a fraction. You don't need to compete with what I am, Harry said. Because whatever I am, you're the reason I'm not alone. Draco stared. His throat bobbed. Then, because Draco Malfoy didn't know how to accept love without paying for it, he lashed out with the only currency he had. He stepped forward and shoved Harry's shoulder hard. You're mine, Draco hissed. Harry didn't stumble. He held Draco's gaze. Then, quietly, he nodded. Brothers, Harry said. Draco's face twisted, as if that word hurt. Then he whispered it back anyway. Brothers. Hermione Granger got petrified on a Thursday. Harry found her first. Not because fate loved him, because Harry watched patterns, and Hermione was the pattern's brain. He found her in the library aisle, frozen near a stack of books about magical creatures. Her hand was curled tight around a scrap of paper. Harry's throat went dry. He didn't shout. He didn't collapse. He knelt beside her slowly, as if sudden movement might break something. His fingers pried the paper free. He read it. One word, written hard and frantic. Basilisk. Our search report. 3. Harry's scar burned. Not with pain, with certainty. He stared at Hermione's stone face. Hermione, who didn't bow. Hermione, who didn't flinch. Hermione, who argued like the world could be corrected by logic. Hermione, frozen because someone in Hogwarts wanted her gone. Harry's breath shook once. Then he stood. His voice was quiet and terrifyingly calm. This ends now. Draco arrived 2 minutes later, breathless, eyes wild. He saw Hermione. He swore, low and vicious. Not because he cared for Hermione, because he saw what this meant. If Hermione could be taken, so could anyone? Including Harry. Including Draco. Including Narcissa's sons. Harry turned to Draco. His voice didn't crack. We have the monster, Harry said. We need the entrance. Draco's eyes narrowed. Myrtle, Draco said instantly. Harry blinked. Draco's jaw set. 50 years ago, Draco said. The last time, it started with her. Harry stared, because Draco wasn't stupid. He'd been raised in the same house of secrets. Draco had been listening, learning, connecting. Harry nodded once. They moved. Moaning Myrtle's bathroom smelled like damp and soap and ghost tears. Myrtle wailed when they entered, dramatic as always. Then she noticed Harry's face. Myrtle quieted. Even a ghost could recognize purpose. Harry's voice was controlled. How did you die? Myrtle sniffed. I told them, she moaned. I told them 100 times. Nobody listens. I was crying, and then I saw— She shivered theatrically. Yellow eyes, Myrtle whispered. Harry's scar pulsed. Draco swallowed hard. Harry stepped toward the sinks. His eyes traced the worn edges, the cracks, the tiny carving Hermione had described once in passing. A snake on a faucet. Draco's breath caught. That's it, Draco whispered. Harry didn't hesitate. He spoke. That hissing, sliding language left his mouth like it belonged there. Open. The sink shuddered. Stone ground against stone. A hole yawned open beneath them. A dark throat descending into the castle. Draco stared, pale. Harry's voice was low. Now we find who's using it. Draco's eyes flicked to the darkness. We don't go alone, Draco said. Harry's gaze sharpened. We might have to. Draco stepped in front of him. No, Draco said, voice breaking into something raw. We don't. Harry held his gaze. Draco's voice dropped. Whatever's down there, Draco whispered. It's waiting for you. It's your language. Your blood, your curse. Harry's scar burned hotter. Draco's eyes were bright. So we go together, Draco said. Brothers. Harry's throat tightened. He nodded once. Together. They didn't take Ron Weasley. They didn't take a Gryffindor army. They took the only adult they could control. Lockhart. They found him in his office, packing trunks like a coward rehearsing escape. He jumped when Harry entered. Ah, Harry, my boy. Harry didn't wait for the performance. His wand was up. Lockhart froze. Draco closed the door. Lockhart's smile faltered. Harry's voice was cold. A student's been taken. Lockhart blinked. Taken? He squeaked. Harry stepped closer. You're going to help me, Harry said. Or you're going to explain to the headmaster why you ran. Lockhart swallowed. Draco leaned in, voice like poison. And if you lie, Draco murmured, I'll remove your memory myself. Lockhart went white. They moved fast. Bathroom. Entrance. Lockhart shaking. Draco's hand tight on his wand. Harry's scar burning like a warning bell. The tunnel was slick and cold, a stone artery beneath the castle. They slid down into a chamber carved with serpents. The air was damp. The walls seemed to whisper in that same hissing language, as if the stones had learned it. In the center lay Ginny Weasley, pale and still. Harry stopped, not because he cared for Weasleys, because she was a child. Because she was dying. Because if Harry let her die, he would become exactly what the castle wanted him to be. Draco's breath caught. He stared at Ginny with something like disgust and pity mixed together. Then a figure stepped out of the shadows. A teenage boy, handsome and sharp-eyed, too solid to be a ghost, too wrong to be human. Tom Riddle. Harry's blood went cold. Draco raised his wand. Lockhart whimpered. Tom smiled. Harry Potter, Tom said softly. And Draco Malfoy. How poetic. Harry didn't answer. His scar burned like fire. Tom's eyes gleamed. You've heard my name, Tom murmured. Harry's voice was controlled. Voldemort, Harry said. Tom's smile widened. Not yet, he said, but soon. He stepped closer to Ginny, looking down at her like she was a toy. This little thing wrote to me, Tom said, poured her heart into the page. And I drank it. Draco's face twisted. Harry's fingers tightened around his wand. Tom's eyes slid to Harry, delighted. And you, Tom said softly, you are the most interesting part. Harry didn't move. Tom leaned in, voice lowering into something intimate. You speak my ancestors' tongue, Tom whispered. They'll fear you. They'll worship you. Either way, they'll kneel. Harry's scar pulsed. Tom smiled again. And you've been raised by Malfoys. Draco froze. Harry's stomach dropped. Tom's eyes glittered. You didn't think secrets stayed buried forever, did you? Tom said. Your father's friends talk. Your father's enemies talk louder. Draco's jaw clenched. Harry's voice was quiet. What do you want? Tom's smile softened into something dangerous. I want to see what you choose, Tom said. Harry's eyes narrowed. Tom gestured at Ginny. She dies, Tom said lightly, and the chamber opens fully. The school panics. They'll blame you. Your precious Slytherin house will rally around you until it becomes inconvenient. Draco's wand trembled slightly. Tom's gaze flicked to Draco. And you, Tom said amused, you'll cling to him anyway because you're terrified of being alone. Draco flinched like he'd been slapped. Harry's voice dropped. Stop talking, Harry hissed. Tom laughed softly. Then his eyes went distant, listening. The chamber trembled. A low, heavy sound echoed through stone. Something enormous was moving. Harry's scar exploded with pain. He merely staggered. Draco grabbed Harry's arm instinctively, steadying him. Tom's smile was pure hunger. Come, Tom whispered. The basilisk arrived like a nightmare made of muscle and scale. A massive serpent, its eyes glowing, its body coiling through the chamber like a living wall. Lockhart screamed. Draco's breath stopped. Harry's blood went ice cold. Tom lifted a hand. Kill, Tom said in Parseltongue. The basilisk turned toward Harry instantly. Harry's scar screamed. Harry's mouth opened before his mind caught up. No, Harry hissed in the same tongue. Stop. The basilisk froze mid-coil. Its head jerked slightly confused. Tom's eyes widened, delighted. Oh, Tom whispered. Oh, you can. Tom's voice snapped, sharper now. Kill. Harry's throat tightened. Stop. The basilisk trembled. 2 commands. 2 masters. For one stretched second, the monster didn't know which voice to obey. Draco stared at Harry like he'd never seen him before. Harry's eyes locked on the basilisk's face. He forced his voice deeper, steadier. "Look at me," Harry hissed. The basilisk's head tilted. Tom's smile vanished. "Do not listen to him," Tom snarled. Harry's scar burned. He could feel something inside him respond to Tom's rage. A dark echo. A fragment. Harry ignored it. He focused on the monster. "Close your eyes," Harry whispered in Parseltongue. The basilisk's eyelids slid down, slow and heavy. Tom went still. His voice turned sharp with real fear. "No." Draco's breath came back in a harsh gasp. Harry's voice snapped hard. "Close them." The basilisk obeyed. And in that moment, the chamber belonged to Harry. Tom's face twisted. "You're not supposed to be able to." Harry cut him off. "Draco," Harry said. Voice English now, sharp. "Now." Draco moved instantly. His wand flashed. "Obliviate," Draco shouted, aiming at Lockhart before the man could bolt. The spell hit. Lockhart's eyes went blank. He slumped against the wall, mumbling. Harry didn't look. He didn't have time. Tom's eyes burned with fury. He snapped back into Parseltongue. "Kill them?" The basilisk's body tensed. Harry's voice was a hissed command. "Hold." The basilisk hesitated. Harry's scar throbbed, his vision blurred. Tom was pushing. Tom had power here. Tom had the chamber. Harry could feel the serpent's confusion, like a living thing in the air. He needed an advantage. He needed help. And as if Hogwarts itself had been listening, a cry echoed through the chamber. A phoenix. Golden red, Fawkes burst into the air like fire, wings beating, eyes sharp. Harry's breath caught. Tom's face twisted with disgust. Dumbledore. The phoenix swooped toward Harry and dropped something into his hands. A battered sorting hat. Harry stared. Draco stared too. Stunned. Tom laughed, cruel and delighted. "A hat?" Tom mocked. "Is that Dumbledore's idea of help?" Harry's scar screamed. The basilisk's head jerked again. Harry didn't answer Tom. He shoved his hand into the hat. His fingers brushed cold metal. He pulled. A sword slid out, gleaming. Not Malfoy silver. Something older. Something that felt like a myth. Draco's breath shook. Tom's smile faltered. Harry's voice was low. "Brothers," Harry murmured. Draco's jaw set. "Brothers," Draco whispered back. Harry turned his attention back to the basilisk. Its eyes were still closed. Its body coiled, ready. Tom shouted again. "Kill." Harry's scar burned like it would split his skull. Harry hissed, hard and final. "Attack him." The basilisk jerked, confused. Then its head snapped toward Tom, as if the command had cut through something ancient. Tom's eyes widened. "No." The basilisk lunged. Tom staggered back, shocked. For a heartbeat, Riddle's control faltered. Harry moved. He ran toward the basilisk, sword raised. Fawkes dove, claws flashing, blinding the basilisk's eyes further. Screeching, Harry's blade drove into the basilisk's mouth. A sickening crunch. Venom sprayed. Harry's arm burned as a fang grazed him. Draco shouted, "Shield up," keeping venom from splashing toward them. The basilisk shuddered, its massive body thrashing. Stone cracked. The chamber shook. Harry pushed harder, teeth clenched, sword twisting. The basilisk's convulsions slowed, then stopped. Its body slumped, massive and dead. Harry stumbled back, panting. His arm burned. Venom seeped. Tom staggered, face twisted with fury and fear. Harry's eyes snapped to Ginny. She was still. Too still. Tom's smile returned, thin and cruel. Too late, Tom whispered. Harry's breath came sharp. Then he saw it. The diary, black, in Tom's hand, like the anchor of everything. Harry's scar screamed again, not pain recognition. Draco's voice was hoarse. "What is that?" Harry's voice was tight. "A weapon," Harry said. Tom's eyes glittered. "A piece of a soul," Tom murmured, almost lovingly. Harry's stomach turned. He didn't fully understand, but he understood enough. This diary was Tom, and Ginny was dying because of it. Harry's gaze flicked to Draco. Draco's face was pale, eyes locked on Ginny. Draco's voice cracked. "She's a Weasley." Harry's jaw tightened. Then he said it, quiet and final. She's a child. And Narcissa's voice echoed in his mind like a command. Family matters above ideology. Our search report. 3. Harry grabbed a basilisk fang from the dead serpent's mouth. It was long, slick with venom. Tom's smile sharpened. You won't, Tom whispered. Harry's scar throbbed. A dark whisper inside him stirred. Hungry, curious, power, join, control. Harry ignored it. He drove the fang into the diary. Tom screamed, a sound like tearing silk and breaking bones. The diary bled ink like blood. Tom's body twisted, dissolving into smoke and shadow. His eyes locked on Harry as he vanished. You could have been mine, Tom hissed. Harry's voice was quiet, brutal. I already belong. Tom's scream faded into nothing. Ginny gasped, choking, eyes fluttering open. Draco stumbled toward her, then stopped, as if remembering she was a Weasley, and that mattered. Harry didn't stop. Harry knelt, lifted her gently. Can you stand? Harry asked. Ginny shook weak. No, she whispered. Harry didn't argue. He scooped her up. Draco stared at Harry like he couldn't process what he was seeing. Harry met Draco's gaze. I don't do evil, Harry said quietly. Draco swallowed hard. Then he nodded once, fierce. Good, Draco whispered. Because if you did, he didn't finish. He didn't need to. They climbed. Dark tunnel. Stone stairs. Up. Back into the bathroom, bursting out like survivors crawling out of a grave. Professors were there. McGonagall pale. Snape furious. Dumbledore calm and deadly. The Weasleys, frantic. Lucius Malfoy in the doorway. Harry's blood went ice. Because Lucius's eyes weren't on Ginny. Lucius's eyes were on the diary that was no longer in Harry's hands. On the basilisk venom staining Harry's sleeve. On Harry's face. Assessing. Measuring. Calculating. Harry held Ginny tighter. Narcissa wasn't there. Harry felt that absence like a missing limb. Dumbledore's eyes flicked from Harry's bleeding arm to Draco's shaken face to Lockhart's vacant stare. He understood instantly that the story in this bathroom was bigger than school. He only said one thing. Hospital wing. In the hospital wing, Harry sat beside Draco in silence. Ginny slept. Hermione remained stone in another bed, the basilisk's curse still held in her veins. Harry stared at her hand, still curled where she'd clutched the note. Draco's voice was rough. You saved a Weasley. Harry didn't look at him. I saved a child, Harry said. Draco swallowed. Then, quietly, Draco said, Father will hate that. Harry's jaw tightened. Let him, Harry said. That night, Dumbledore called Harry to his office. Not Draco. Just Harry. Harry walked in alone, posture controlled, expression calm. Fawkes watched him from his perch like a judge. Dumbledore didn't offer sweets. He didn't smile. He looked tired. And, for the first time, he looked almost wary. You closed the chamber, Dumbledore said softly. Harry didn't nod like a child accepting praise. He nodded like a soldier, reporting a fact. Yes, Dumbledore's gaze sharpened. You spoke to the basilisk, Dumbledore said. Harry's scar tingled faintly. Yes. Dumbledore leaned back slightly. And you destroyed Tom Riddle's diary, Dumbledore said. Harry's eyes narrowed. Yes. Dumbledore's fingers tightened, almost imperceptibly. Do you know, Dumbledore asked gently, what that diary was? Harry's voice was quiet. A weapon, Harry said. A trap. Dumbledore's gaze held his. A Horcrux, Dumbledore said softly. Harry's stomach dropped. He didn't show it. He only asked, controlled. What is that? Dumbledore studied him. Then he spoke slowly, like each word was a step across thin ice. A method, Dumbledore said, of hiding a piece of one's soul. Harry's scar burned. His throat went dry. Dumbledore's eyes softened. Voldemort, Dumbledore said, split his soul to avoid death. Harry's hands clenched slightly. Dumbledore watched him carefully. And you, Dumbledore said softly, stood in front of that knowledge, and still chose to save a child. Harry's jaw tightened. I chose, Harry said, not to become what they want. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled faintly. Not with humor, with recognition. The question, Dumbledore said quietly, is who they are. Harry's voice was cold. Everyone, Harry said. Dumbledore didn't deny it. He only asked, very softly, "And your guardians?" Harry met his gaze. "You placed me with them," Harry said. Research report 3. Silence. Fox shifted. Dumbledore's voice was gentle. "Yes," he admitted. Harry's eyes didn't blink. "You knew what they were," Harry said. "What did you expect me to become?" Dumbledore held his gaze. "I expected," Dumbledore said softly, "exactly what you are." Research report 3. Harry's throat tightened. Dumbledore continued, quiet and dangerous. "The question, Harry," Dumbledore said, "is whether that is what you want to be." Harry didn't answer, because he didn't know. That summer at Malfoy Manor was the first time Harry truly understood what it meant to live in a beautiful prison. Research report 3. The peacocks screamed when he arrived. The gates shut behind him with a sound like a verdict. Narcissa met him at the door, pale and composed and trembling in a way she would never admit. She didn't hug him in front of the staff. She waited until the doors closed. Then she grabbed him and held him hard, fingers tight in his robes. "You're bleeding," she whispered, voice cracking. "I'm fine," Harry said automatically. Narcissa pulled back, eyes blazing. "No," she hissed. "You are not." Harry froze. Because Narcissa didn't say "you are not," like a mother worrying about a scraped knee. She said it like a soldier furious her son had been sent into battle without armor. Her hands went to his face. Her thumb brushed the edge of his scar. Harry flinched slightly, not from pain. From the intimacy of it, Narcissa's breath shook. "Do not speak it again," she whispered. "Not for them." Harry swallowed. "I didn't know," he said quietly. Narcissa's eyes tightened. "I know," she whispered. Then her voice turned sharp, controlled again. "Where is Draco?" "In the carriage," Harry said. Narcissa's mouth pressed into a thin line. "Good," she said. "He stays near you." Harry's throat tightened. "Mother," Harry began. Narcissa's eyes flashed. "Do not call me that like it's a question," she snapped. Harry froze. Narcissa exhaled, slow. Then she softened, just a fraction. "You are mine," Narcissa said quietly. "Whatever the world calls you." Harry's chest tightened. He nodded once. Lucius waited in the drawing room. Dark purple walls. Cold fire, a glass of something expensive untouched in his hand. Harry stepped in, posture straight. Draco hovered near the doorway, tense, watching both of them like a hawk. Lucius's eyes swept over Harry, the bandaged arm, the faint venom stain, the tiredness hidden behind control. "You caused," Lucius said softly, "a scandal." Harry's voice was calm. "I stopped a monster." Lucius's smile was thin. "You drew attention," Lucius corrected. Harry didn't blink. Lucius's gaze sharpened. "And you destroyed something that did not belong to you," Lucius said. Harry's blood went cold. Draco stiffened. Narcissa's voice came from the doorway. "Ice. It was killing children." Lucius's eyes flicked to Narcissa, then back to Harry. His voice remained smooth. "That diary," Lucius said softly, "was valuable." Harry's jaw tightened. "You put it in the school," Harry said. Silence. Draco's breath caught. Narcissa went still. Lucius's smile didn't change. Harry's voice was quiet, lethal. "You put it in the school," Harry repeated. Lucius's eyes narrowed. "You're accusing me," Lucius said calmly. Harry held his gaze. "I'm stating a fact," Harry said. Lucius's smile sharpened. "And what will you do with that fact?" Lucius asked. Harry didn't answer, because Harry understood now. This wasn't a family conversation. This was politics. Lucius leaned forward slightly, voice lowering. "You think you understand what you destroyed," Lucius murmured. "You don't." Harry's scar pulsed. Lucius continued, soft as poison. "You are valuable," Lucius said. "And valuable things do not make impulsive moral choices." Draco's voice snapped, furious. "He saved lives." Lucius's gaze flicked to Draco with mild contempt. "Quiet," Lucius said. Draco flinched. Narcissa stepped forward. "Don't," Narcissa warned. Lucius's eyes remained on Draco. "You will not," Lucius said softly. "Raise your voice in this house." Draco's jaw clenched. Harry saw Draco's hands shaking slightly. Not fear, humiliation. Harry stepped forward, placing himself between Draco and Lucius without making it obvious. Lucius's eyes flicked to Harry. Amusement, Because Lucius liked seeing loyalty. He just didn't like seeing it pointed away from him. Harry's voice was calm. If you did it, Harry said, it endangered Draco. Lucius's eyes narrowed. Narcissa's breath caught. Draco froze. Lucius didn't answer immediately. Then he smiled, thin and sharp. You're learning, Lucius murmured. Harry's eyes didn't blink. You used Ginny Weasley, Harry said. To make a statement. Lucius's voice was smooth. I used a Weasley, Lucius corrected. To discredit a Weasley. Harry's stomach turned. Draco stared at his father like he'd never seen him clearly before. Narcissa's voice trembled with fury. And if Harry had died, she hissed. Lucius's eyes flicked to Narcissa, dismissive. He didn't, Lucius said. Narcissa's eyes went cold. That is not an answer, Narcissa whispered. Lucius's voice softened, dangerously. You forget, Lucius said, that the world is not kind. Narcissa stepped closer, voice sharp as glass. I never forget, Narcissa said. I remember every day. Lucius's eyes narrowed. Narcissa's voice dropped into something terrifyingly quiet. If you ever, Narcissa whispered, put my sons in the path of your schemes again, I will burn this house down with you inside it. Draco's breath stopped. Harry's chest tightened. Lucius stared at Narcissa. Then, slowly, he smiled. Not amused, impressed. Because Narcissa's love was not soft, it was weapon grade. Lucius lifted his glass and drank, as if sealing the moment with indifference. Harry didn't speak, but he remembered, because Malfoy children learned early that information was power. Our research report. 3. In August, Dobby appeared in Harry's room with shaking hands and huge eyes. Harry sat on the edge of his bed, looking at the house elf. Harry Potter, sir, Dobby heard. Dobby heard Master Lucius. Harry held up a hand. Careful, Harry said quietly. Dobby trembled. He will hurt you, Dobby squeaked. Harry stared. Who? Dobby's eyes flooded. Harry Potter, sir, Dobby whispered. The Dark Lord. He will come back. Harry's scar tingled. Harry's voice was controlled. How do you know? Dobby shook. Dobby feels, he squeaked. Dobby hears. Harry's jaw tightened. He reached into his drawer and pulled out the white silk handkerchief Narcissa had given Dobby years ago. He'd kept it, not because it was valuable, because it had been the first time he'd watched someone in that house treat a servant like a person. Harry held it out. Dobby's eyes widened, terrified. No, Dobby squeaked. Clothes. Harry's voice was quiet. You're already free, Harry said. Dobby shook, sobbing. Dobby can't. Harry stood. He stepped closer. He wrapped the handkerchief gently around Dobby's hands like a gift. Take it, Harry said. Dobby's fingers closed around it, and something snapped in the air, soft and invisible. Dobby gasped, falling to his knees. He stared at his hands. Then he looked up at Harry like Harry was sunlight. Dobby is free, Dobby whispered. Harry's throat tightened. Go, Harry said. Go where he can't reach you. Dobby sobbed harder. Then he vanished with a crack. Harry didn't tell Narcissa he did it. He didn't tell Draco either. Not yet. Because freeing Dobby wasn't just kindness. It was a declaration of independence. And independence was the most dangerous thing a Malfoy could do. Third year arrived with Dementors. Azkaban's guards came to Hogwarts like a sickness, cloaked and silent and starving. The first time one passed Harry in the corridor, he didn't just feel cold. He heard a scream, a woman's scream, a desperate, broken sound that went straight through his ribs and into his bones. His legs buckled. His scar burned. The world tilted. And for a second he was in a ruined house, smelling smoke and blood, watching green light. Harry's breath came in shallow, shaking gasps. Draco caught him before he hit the floor. Draco's face was white. What's happening? Draco demanded, voice cracking. Harry's voice was a whisper. My mother, Harry said. Draco froze. Harry's throat tightened. She screamed. Harry whispered. I can hear it. Draco's grip tightened. Draco's voice was fierce. Then we fix it, Draco hissed. They didn't go to Lupin. They didn't go to Gryffindor Comfort. They went to the only place that made sense. Books. And the one teacher in this castle who understood darkness better than anyone. Snape. Snape didn't want to help. Snape hated Harry. But hatred wasn't the only thing in Snape. There was also obligation. There was also grief. There was also Lily. When Harry stood in Snape's office and said the word Patronus, Snape stared like he wanted to spit venom. You want to cast a Patronus, Snape sneered, when you can barely control your own mind. Harry's voice was controlled. I will learn, Harry said. Snape's eyes narrowed. Why? Snape hissed. Harry didn't soften it. Because I'm not collapsing in hallways, Harry said. Not for them. Snape's lip curled. Pride, Snape murmured. Harry's gaze sharpened. Survival, Harry corrected. Snape stared. Then, very quietly, he said, Your mother was not like this. Harry didn't blink. You didn't raise me, Harry said. She might have been. Research report. 3. Silence. Snape's eyes burned. Then he shoved a book at Harry so hard it nearly knocked him back. Read, Snape snarled. Do not come to me again until you can explain it in theory. Harry took it. He left. And every night, in the room of requirement, Harry practiced. Not the spell, the memory. Because the Patronus required a pure moment of happiness, and Harry's life was complicated. His happiest moments weren't simple. They were layered. Draco laughing on a broom over the manor grounds. Narcissa brushing his hair back when he was sick as a child. A hand on his shoulder, steady. Belonging, without conditions. Love, without calculation. It was the mirror of Ericide, except real. Harry's Patronus burst from his wand on a February night, silver and bright. A stag? Draco stared at it, stunned. Harry stared too. Because it wasn't Malfoy. It wasn't Snake. It wasn't Peacock. It was James Potter's legacy, surging out of him despite everything. Research report. 3. Harry's throat tightened. Draco's voice was barely a whisper. That's you. Harry's voice cracked, just barely. No, Harry whispered. That's him. And in that moment, Harry understood that no matter who raised him, blood still lived inside him like a ghost. Sirius Black escaped in March. The castle panicked. Dementors prowled. Whispers exploded. Sirius Black was coming for Harry Potter. Draco's fear wasn't about Sirius. It was about Narcissa, because Sirius wasn't just Harry's godfather. He was Narcissa's cousin. Our search report. 3. Family. Black family. The word family could mean shelter, or it could mean a blade. When Sirius finally cornered them in the shrieking shack, it wasn't heroic. It was messy. It was rage. It was grief. Sirius looked wild, eyes sunken, hair tangled, voice raw. You, Sirius breathed, staring at Harry like he'd been stabbed. You're wearing their colors. Harry's wand was up. Draco's wand was up too, aimed at Sirius without hesitation. Sirius laughed, broken. Protective, Sirius rasped. Just like her. Harry's scar throbbed. Harry's voice was controlled. Explain, Harry said. Sirius's eyes snapped to Draco. Not him, Sirius snarled. Draco's voice was ice. He stays, Draco said. Harry's jaw tightened. He stays, Harry repeated. Sirius stared. Then his face twisted with something like pain. All right, Sirius spat. Fine. And then the truth spilled out. Pedigree, betrayal, a rat. 12 years of rot because the wrong man got blamed. Harry listened, heart hammering. Because Sirius's story wasn't just about innocence. It was about blood, about the family Harry never knew. Sirius stepped forward, voice cracking. Your parents? Sirius whispered. They loved you. They died for you. And you were stolen. Draco's wand trembled. Harry's breath shook. Not stolen, Harry said quietly. Placed. Sirius froze. Harry's voice didn't soften. Dumbledore placed me, Harry said. And Narcissa raised me. Sirius's face twisted. Narcissa's name and Sirius's mouth sounded like a curse. You think she loves you? Sirius hissed. Harry's eyes went cold. I know she does, Harry said. Sirius laughed, sharp and bitter. Then you're a fool, Sirius spat. Harry's voice dropped. And you're alive because she didn't leave you to rot in this family's obsession, Harry said. Silence. Sirius's eyes flashed. Draco's voice was low, shaking. He's not alone, Draco said. He never was. Sirius stared at Draco. Then, very quietly, Sirius whispered, Regulus would have hated you. Draco flinched. Harry's jaw tightened. Regulus, Harry said. Sirius's eyes flicked to Harry. Your family, Sirius hissed. Your blood family. They fought Voldemort. Harry's scar burned. Draco's breath shook. Then Lupin arrived. Chaos, explanations, Pettigrew revealed. A rat becoming a man, trembling, begging, disgusting. Draco looked at Pettigrew with pure horror. This is what betrayal looks like, Draco whispered. Lupin and Sirius moved to kill Pettigrew. Harry's instincts flared. Not Gryffindor mercy, Slytherin calculation. If Pettigrew died here, the truth died with him. If Pettigrew lived, he could be used. But Draco stepped in, shaking, voice cracked with something raw. No, Draco whispered. No more murder. Harry froze, because Draco wasn't saying it to protect Pettigrew. He was saying it to protect Harry, to keep Harry from crossing a line he could never uncross. Harry's throat tightened. He nodded once. Pettigrew lived, and he escaped anyway. Research report 3. They regretted it. For years. 4th year brought the Triwizard Tournament. The goblet burned. Names flew, and when Harry Potter's name erupted from the flames, the Great Hall didn't gasp. It roared, because of course. Of course the boy who lived would be dragged into another story that wanted his blood. Draco went white. Hermione went rigid. Ron looked furious, as if Harry had chosen it. Harry felt his scar throb like a heartbeat. He didn't protest loudly. He didn't collapse. He did what Lucius had trained him to do. He prepared. He used the Malfoy library's knowledge. He used Draco's eyes. He used Hermione's relentless brain, traded in cold bargains and sharp arguments. He didn't win tasks through luck. He won by planning until the plan broke, and then surviving when it did. Our search report 3. The graveyard was where preparation died. Port key, cold air, tombstones, Cedric Diggory collapsing like a puppet with cut strings. Harry's stomach dropped into something hollow. Voldemort rose from a cauldron like death-given skin. And when the Death Eaters apparated in a circle, Harry's blood froze for one reason above all. Lucius Malfoy was there. Mask on, wand in hand, kneeling, groveling. Harry watched his adoptive father bow to the monster who murdered his biological parents. Our search report 3. Something inside Harry shattered silently. Not his love for Narcissa, not his bond with Draco, his illusion that Lucius was just politics. Lucius wasn't politics. Lucius was cowardice in silk. When Harry escaped, blood burning, scar screaming, Cedric's body dragged back into Hogwarts like a prophecy fulfilled. The world still tried to pretend it wasn't real. The Ministry denied it. Fudge panicked. The Daily Prophet lied. And Lucius Malfoy smiled in public like nothing happened. Harry didn't expose him. Not yet. Our search report 3. Because Draco hadn't betrayed him. Because Narcissa hadn't betrayed him. And because if Harry destroyed Lucius publicly, he destroyed Draco too. That summer, Harry didn't sleep much. He wandered the manor at night the way he always did. Information was power, and power was the only thing that kept monsters away. One night he heard voices in the drawing room. Lucius, Narcissa. Harry stopped in the corridor, listening. Lucius's voice was steady. The Dark Lord will return. Narcissa's voice was ice. When he does, he'll want the boy. Our search report 3. Harry's heart slammed. Lucius's voice tightened. You don't understand, Narcissa cut him off. I understand perfectly, Narcissa whispered. I understand that you want to hand your son to a monster. Our search report 3. Lucius's voice went cold. He's not. A pause. He's not my son. Harry's blood turned to ice. Silence. Then Narcissa's whisper carried like a shout. He is mine. Our search report 3. Harry pressed against the wall, breath shallow. Narcissa's voice trembled with fury. I raised him, Narcissa hissed. I held him when he cried. I taught him his first spell. Lucius's voice was bitter. The Dark Lord will not ask, he will take. Narcissa's voice didn't break. Then he'll have to go through me. Our search report 3. Harry stepped back silently. He slipped away. And he knew two things with brutal clarity. Narcissa would die for him. Lucius would sell him if it kept him breathing. 5th year was war without open battles. Umbridge arrived like a ministry parasite, smiling sweetly while she strangled the school. Harry didn't shout. He didn't rebel in public. He documented. He watched. He gathered allies the way Slytherins did, quietly, strategically. One promise at a time. Our search report. 3. Draco hated Umbridge. Not because Draco cared about student rights, because Umbridge represented something Draco had never had to face before. A power that didn't respect money. A power that didn't fear the Malfoy name. Harry hated her for a simpler reason. She tried to control him. And Harry had been controlled his whole life. When Voldemort began slipping into Harry's mind more often, the dreams grew sharper. A corridor, a door, a sense of hunger, a snake-like satisfaction. Harry started waking with his scar burning and his hands clenched. Draco watched him, eyes dark. "Clemency," Draco whispered one night. Harry's jaw tightened. "Snape," Harry said flatly. Draco grimaced. "Snape," Draco agreed. And so Harry learned to close his mind, not through kindness, through discipline, through pain, through refusing to let Voldemort see anything soft. In June, the trap snapped shut. A vision. Sirius in pain. Sirius screaming. Harry's blood went ice. Draco grabbed him instantly. "It's a trap," Draco hissed. Harry's breath shook. "It's family," Harry whispered. Draco's eyes flashed. "So are we?" Draco snapped. Harry froze, because Draco was right. Family wasn't just blood. Family was the person who stayed. Harry swallowed. Then he made a choice that saved Draco's soul and broke Harry's. They went. Not with a Gryffindor army, with a coalition. A few Ravenclaws, a few Slytherins who remembered Harry's kindness. Hermione, pale but relentless, refusing to let fear win. They went to the Ministry, and in the Department of Mysteries, reality tore open. Death Eaters. Masks. Spells. Lucius's voice slicing through darkness. And then Sirius. Real. Alive. Fighting. Not screaming in a vision. Harry's relief lasted one breath. Then Bellatrix's laughter cut through the chaos. A flash of red. Sirius fell through the veil like a shadow swallowed by nothing. Harry's scream didn't come out as a sound. It came out as a silence so deep it felt like drowning. Draco grabbed Harry's robe, yanking him back as curses exploded. "Move!" Draco roared. Harry moved. Because Draco was family. Because Draco was alive. Because Harry couldn't save everyone. Voldemort appeared. Dumbledore dueled him. The Ministry saw. The denial shattered. And Voldemort's gaze locked on Harry like hunger. Not just prophecy. Possession. Claim. That summer, Voldemort didn't just demand obedience. He demanded leverage. He demanded Harry. Lucius broke first. Not in heroism. In fear. And fear, as Dumbledore once said, could be useful. 6th year began with the dark mark over the castle. Dumbledore weakened. Draco hollowed out by a mission he couldn't survive. But in this timeline, Draco wasn't alone in that mission. Because Voldemort didn't only have Draco, he had Harry too. He had Narcissa. He had everything the Malfoys loved. And that was the breaking point. Not Lucius's imprisonment. Not humiliation. Not ideology. Love. Narcissa chose. The way she always had. She chose her sons. And in the winter of 6th year, the Malfoys defected, not to the order, not to heroism, into something colder. Neutrality. Survival. Research report. 3. They locked Malfoy Manor down. Ancient wards sang. The cellar beneath the drawing room, escape-proof, anti-apparition, became a shield instead of a cage. Research report. 3. Lucius hated it, because neutrality meant admitting fear. Narcissa didn't care. She'd admitted fear the first time she held Harry and realized the world would come for him. Harry didn't forgive Lucius. He didn't forget the graveyard. But he stayed, because Narcissa stayed, because Draco stayed, because family, even damaged, was still family. And Voldemort came anyway. Subscribe for part 2, the end.